Today's video is brought to you by Prize Picks, America's #1 sports app. And when you use my code right now, HMA, they'll put $50 in your account, but you put a $5 lineup down. Hard to beat that. They've got baseball, basketball, heck, they've even got the seasonal picks up here for the NFL season. Terms and conditions do apply. Please do remember to gamble responsibly. Hello and welcome to the Hawks Nest stream show. My name is Brandon Kane. I thank you for tuning on in today. You know I do as always on a wonderful Sunday afternoon as we steadily move our way here right back around to the NFL season here in almost no time. And as we do get into what is that sort of darker period here of the offseason, free agency gone, draft gone, kind of waiting around now, seeing what's going to happen, see how this is all going to kind of roll. We do have the Hawks sitting on a gigantic amount of cap space, so you never know when John might pull that particular way of adding another player at another time. Never know with John. He's a cagey one with that. But today we're going to look at something specifically that I really want to target in on, because it's a great time to talk about these type of topics that I think do kind of slip between the cracks. And this is going to come down to one of those things that is, for me, time-honored tradition here on the channel, being that I like to try to hammer into what are sort of, I like to call them kind of national narratives when it comes to the team or when it comes to the player. And I think when it comes to Cooper Kupp, there is both a narrative that has kind of been draped over the top of him coming here to Seattle, and that there is even some of the fan base that also sort of partakes in their outlook of him on this. And so I want to dedicate here this live stream show today as much a little bit of an appreciation, hopefully, of Cooper Kupp, but also hopefully to maybe lay out a case for those who want to sit in this area of things to maybe understand a little bit better, really what value is and what value he's bringing to the table. Because Cooper Kupp is not a guy that you simply can measure within just what he does in the catches and receptions, though we're going to unpack all of this. So strap on in. Let's have a little bit of a discussion today in regards to Cooper Kupp, because when the Seattle signed him 3 years, $45 million deal last year, $26 million guaranteed, the thought process was that this is a guy who has seen better days. He's not going to be the player that he once was. You are signing up for past performance. He's had too many injuries. It's been 4 seasons removed since he had his Triple Crown wide receiver winning season. So you're long from him even being around 1,000 yards as far as receptions go. And he comes into last year and he ends up coming away with 70 targets and 47 receptions, 593 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, nothing special on the surface of this, especially considering the amount of money that you're paying him here, which would stand out. But this is one of those important points that I often probably overstate my case on to you guys here on the channel. And I often press to you guys over and over again, which is that football is not meant to be simply looked at with simple eyes and simple outlooks. And everything deriving down to a simple this. Well, look at his receptions. Well, look at his yards. What do I mean by this? Let me unpack it. I'm glad you asked. First, let's acknowledge something off the rip here, okay? When it comes to the Seattle Seahawks and last season, to say that they didn't pass the ball a lot is sort of a gross understatement. To say that they like to lean on the run, that kind of doesn't quite capture it. The Arizona Cardinals led the NFL with 649 passing attempts collectively between all of their quarterbacks. The Bengals behind them at 640. The Cowboys at 624. Those are the top, the best, or not the best, but those needing to throw the ball the most. Playing from behind probably quite a bit. And then as we roll down to the lower end, as we start to just kind of climb down to the bottom of that list, we go through the teens, we go through the early 20s, we get down into the deep 20s, almost to 30. We see Seattle there at 29th in the NFL with 481 passing attempts last season. So before we just simply characterize this, because what you're going to do on the surface when you look at a Cooper Kupp situation here is you're going to say, well, look at that yardage and look how low it is, commiserate with his career. And that in itself tells me the whole story. I don't need to know anything else. But yes, you do. Because this passing attempts shows you the fact that it's not just merely they weren't throwing the ball a lot. They were one amongst the bottom 4 teams in the league at throwing the ball. Bottom 3 teams in the league. Bottom 4 teams in the league at throwing the ball. And that's just going to mean, doesn't matter whether it's Cooper Kupp or Jackson Smith and Jigba or the tight end, it's going to mean every Seattle Seahawks player is going to be kind of affected by that because they're going to be so different from the mean itself, from the NFL mean itself as far as passing attempts go. which would have been more around, 569. I'm not saying it's going to severely alter his stats, but it's part of what's going to make a difference. And it's not the only thing on this that's making a difference as far as his production goes. But it's a thing to really keep in mind on this when you see people trying to match apple for apple to, let's say, a wide receiver that's playing on the Cowboys, or a receiver that's playing on the Rams, or a receiver that's playing on the Lions. It makes a bit of a difference when you're going to be that pass happy for the production you produce. It doesn't necessarily mean you're doing it efficiently. And it doesn't mean that it's necessarily contributing to you winning games, which is what he was doing with those receptions last year. The other part that's built into this that just kind of can't be overlooked, in my opinion, that's a major, major part of this is, so first off, we know their passing attempts have shrunken down. We're down to the bottom 4. So already you're a little bit behind the 8 ball if you're trying to produce highly, which is not what Cooper Kupp's about. He's about winning. But if you're just thinking about this of, my measurement of Kupp will be how he produces. Okay, well, it's going to be hard to do that when we're already down here. Then I throw on this item on top of it, where Jackson Smith-Njigba, by far in the NFL last season, led the NFL in the number of passing targets, not completion, just the number of those passing targets I just presented to you that was bottom 4. He's catching 34% of those. Those are not catching, but those are coming his way. He's eating up 34%. If it was a pie, he'd be eating up 34% of those passing attempts, leaving the rest for all of the rest of the other receivers. So hopefully you can do enough math on just these base 2 things alone to kind of understand why you need to alter the outlook if you're just trying to use that measurement stick of receptions and yards. Because there's other things that change this situation in a dynamic fashion that make it very unusual to any other receiver's situation in the NFL. Any other receiver's situation in the NFL. So these are the 2 things that limited down his production, but it did not mean he was effective. It did not mean he wasn't efficient. And it did not mean especially that he wasn't helping you win games on a couple of different levels. But this is the first place we've got to start with, is keeping in mind the fact that this is not, merely him just, not making the catches when he's got the chances or this or that or whatever excuse we would try to apply to kind of cover that up. But it's actually, pretty valid. Another interesting note of this is that there was some things that he did last season that were unique versus what he's done in other years. And let me get my stupid head out of the frame here. I want to get this up. And we're going to pay attention to a little bit of more of the advanced stats down the line on this here. I don't want you to really look as up on the game-to-game one. We're going to look down more to the bottom here. And what you'll notice with this is that the big thing that stood out to me in looking at this was that last year you brought in Cooper and you brought in Jackson Smith-Njigba. And part of why the Rams were willing to let Cooper Kupp walk was not that Kupp was done. We can kind of tell this by the fact that they were trying to talk him into retirement. Because I think, quite frankly, their biggest fear was that the Seahawks were going to, or a team within this division, maybe the Niners even, would end up taking Kupp, and that he'd be a really helpful tool to developing the receiving core and helping them win games and helping them get over the top. And boy, how bad would you look if that were to happen? So, what is interesting about this one when I look at it is that Cooper Kupp last year did something at the highest rate he had done at any point in his entire career. And that is play on the outside. The big, of course, innovation from Kubiak this past season, in my opinion, is his way to deal with having the 2 slot receivers essentially on the field, his 2 best receivers being slot receivers. I want to get my 2 best receivers on the field, but they're both slots. How to do that? I'll drive him down into more condensed looks. Condensed looks, even if a receiver's on the ball now, gives him more of slot receiver routes he can run out of from that, allowing him to be comfortable from within that. But still, 51% of the time, Cooper Kupp last season aligned out wide when his previous career high was 43.3%. So he went to go outside, was the good soldier in doing so, because that was some of that was just so you could make sure you're utilizing Jackson, at his best, and some of the other receivers on this roster that also was doing some things within the slot as well. You can see his YAC per reception at 5.2 yards was fairly high up as far as his career margins go. I'm going to show you guys some of the stuff on tape with him last year where he's still bringing a lot of that, which is a very fundamental part to the West Coast offense. You're going to throw the ball short, get the ball in the receiver's hands. You want the receivers to put some work in. Big part of the Niners going for Dejon Stribling this past year in this last draft for what he does after the catch. How they've gravitated to guys like Debo and even Ayuk that could do some of this stuff. They want the guy I can throw it to you short, and you're going to extend this run. And Cooper Kupp still showed last year he's got that also within it. So you're getting the versatility. He can play the X, he can play the Z, he can play the slot. You're seeing him still show off a good amount of efficiency in his level of play, even the fact that he's not necessarily being hyper-targeted like he had been at other times in other years. I mean, look at the 2021 season that he won the Triple Crown. You know, when you factor in all of the postseason, because this is factoring in regular and postseason on some of these stats here, you can see he got 178 targets. 230 targets. 230 targets in 2021. And you're all the way down at 89 this past year. So it is, to me, one where when to look at Kupp properly, especially when you're assessing it off the back of him being a Super Bowl champion, now a multiple-time Super Bowl champion, I think you got to look at it a little bit more from the efficiency angle at it here than just the pure raw numbers. Oh, by the way, he also was led your team in receptions and yards in 2 of the 3 games in the playoffs as well. So he came up big when you really needed him most as well, in addition to all of this. But we're not done making our case here. I'm just getting warmed up. And when we look at him, there are some specific things I still want to kind of track into on him and talk about. Excuse me. Get my dang notes here. And I, as I said, I do want to go into a little bit of some of the tape here because I think it tells a little bit of some of the story at play with Cooper. And, a bit of why when you look at some of the tape here, this unpackages really well with him and you start to just kind of get a little bit more and more why this is such good value for Seattle. Not even bringing in the final factor, which should be the sealer for it. We're going to stick first with what's on the field right now. But there's, of course, one big final heavy factor that swings in like a sledgehammer on this situation in a major, major way. So Kupp last year, throughout the year, a variety of different moments where he popped up and helpful. You had the Jaguar game here. Just going to go through a couple of just basic files I want to show you guys on this. All right, sorry. Excuse me. There we go. So still a threat down by the red zone. And as we saw last year, there was a lot of operating here from within the slot. As you see, he's going to here, still able to run the crispy route, create separation, an absolute just beautiful ball by Sam here. I mean, the placement doesn't get any better on this little kind of quasi out route, corner route. It's kind of somewhere in between almost a little bit. But he gets up in there, gets the leverage, outbreaks off the leverage, is there on time, isn't held up, can fight through the physicality of coverage still a little bit here where you can see just even a glancing blow is not going to knock him off a spot. It's not a superstar type of rep here, but this is just what he was doing throughout the year, being in the right place at the right time and making the reception more often than not. Sometimes that being even a tough reception, at that. One second. Keeping it moving here. I want to show you off a little bit. As I said, the YAC was a big thing last year that showed up in this play. The YAC was so much, I can only show so much of the play because of the fact that he took this for so far. But as we take out this play, Sam scrambles around a little bit and Cooper's just sort of sitting there out in the flat. You can see 14 in the upper right-hand portion of the screen. And Cooper's just caught this ball at about the 42-yard line. This is not only the longest catch and run that he had of the season, but I think that this also still showed you a little bit of what you always get with him after every catch, which is that if there's an opportunity there to break the tackle, he can be very nifty and very sly and just kind of get a couple feet down a certain way and kind of shift on you a certain way and be able to lose tacklers in space in ways other receivers can't, and is underrated and helpful when you're talking about a guy getting less than the maximum amount of targets and touches and catches. Those catches you get, I want you to maximize to the utmost. I want you extending those catches and runs as much as you can. And in this offense, it's such an important part because as we know, the more that you can do that, the more you can get these consistent drives, consistent points with our defense. That's pretty much game over at that point. But check him out here. Just breaking a couple tackles at the end. I still had to speed up the end. I couldn't even show the whole play because this takes about 6 seconds to get down the line here. But breaks the first tackle from behind, cuts back the other one. Good job by Arroyo down the field here, getting up and getting his block laid. But just see that niftiness there? Just that little just whoop, whoop. What is it? Whoop, whoop. It's not really a juke, right? Whereas just some of these guys have these open field runners just kind of a feel for things more than it's some pretty move that they're making. But he keeps his feet. He knows how to keep his feet through traffic and that type of thing still at his age. He's not running around there like an old man, and he was still breaking these tackles, as I showed on his YAC per reception. Those numbers are very in line, in form with what he's done in his career, historically speaking. And again, big part, very, very, very big part of what you want to look to do here. Route running, separation, still a fundamental part of his game that you see over and over again, no doubt about it. Cooper, again, operating here from the slot. You've got 11 personnel, 11 wide, so 3 wide receivers here, shotgun. This is if you watched a couple of days ago at training camp, you saw him running a route up the field, and you could see him as he was running he kind of gets into a little bit of this back and forth motion, a little bit of a sway, kind of back and forth as he's running his route. Now watch this. This is where you get to see on a play like this, on an OTA, and you look at it and go, man, would that really work in the game? Does that kind of move really work, or does that just kind of look fun or cool on a practice field? Well, watch this and watch him here from the slot. Bump, bump, bump. And then he gets open. Look how much separation he creates on that. First down. So watch it again. Watch that sway as he's getting in through the course of his route. Bump, bump, bump. It's every step is sort of challenging the cornerback that I'm going to break. Every step's trying to get that cornerback to flip his hips, just like he gets him to do here. I want you to flip your hips. I want you to sell to a spot you think I'm going. And then hopefully I'm able to go the opposite direction and create separation. Fantastic rep here. But if you go back, check out the OTA rep here from Cooper Kupp just a couple days ago that came out. It looked just like this. So yes, this does still work in the game. And yes, he's still very good with his route running and at creating the separation. And certainly Sam's very good with his rhythm-based approach of being able to find it, get it in there, and make it happen. Now the catch and run from the Viking game here. I don't know where I say, just it ain't a fancy move with him. Catches this ball on the flat. Sam gets it out to him quick. Real key here is Sam doesn't take a half hour to get this ball out. It's back foot, let it rip. But then able to get around, go get the first down. Watch how he breaks this tackle. There's no juke, just to stop. I'll hit the brakes, fly right by, Top Gun, Maverick move. Basically all he's doing. But he can kind of sense those guys coming in, and as I say, get sort of nifty with it in the open field. And usually always finishes off the run nicely. So simple first down catch, but once again, extending that which is short to far. That's what you want to do with this West Coast offense with your wide receivers. This goes back to the origins of it. This is that Jerry Rice stuff. Jerry had plenty of catches he made over the top, but a lot of Jerry's game was catching that slant route and taking that slant, housing it. Those kind of plays. That's what this system really loves in its wide receivers, as almost a skill at the forefront above at times even, sometimes even route running, or sometimes even super great hands. I know that seems counter to it, but if a coach in this system can kind of sometimes predict on it or have to choose on it, he's got this one great skill, but then he's got a limitation here, but he's got this great skill. They're going to want that in this system a lot. A lot of them are. Depends on which West Coast guy we're talking about, but especially from the Shanahan tree, they've had a lot of guys through the years that have definitely been more of the catch and run kind of artists, like McDaniel had down with the Dolphins and Tyreek Hill and Waddle, and kind of how they were built in that fashion as well. We got the Patriots game, as I said, really cool game from Cooper Kupp because he was able to come out there and go out there and really shine. And it wasn't that he took, lit the world on fire, though. This is a really nice catch. Another one similar to the touchdown catch I showed, where still has that ability to make that catch in tight confines. Defenders kind of hanging off of him. He's right in his face there. Got a guy draped through, but still has those nice secured hands, toe tag, drag, swag, gets it down, runs a nice little crossing route here. This is a tough route to cover, long developing, especially against this defense, which looks cover 3. So really, really nice route here by Cooper. You can see too, this is where the run defense thing really sets this up, because the corner has to kind of sit down and squat first on the run. So see the play action and watch the slot corner on Cooper there, and see how he has to kind of stay flat footed, because if this is a run play, I got to fight off Cooper Kupp's block, because I know Cooper Kupp's going to block like a demon, and I got to get in there and be on the run because I know they're going to run the ball today. So he's got to wait that one little beat, and that one little beat now is enough for Cooper to get by him and create the separation down the field. And look at that separation there at his age. Yeah, he can still get by people. He can still get down the field. He can still do what's required. So another nice throw here by Sam. Really tight, but nice little throw in there. Very well done. And, that was kind of the highlight of his day. A couple other plays in here. We're again doing some similar stuff to what I've shown already. Just sit down in the middle of the field, make the catch, extend the run. So come out of the out. He's operating here from the outside, sit down, make the catch. He's got such a good knowledge of where the soft spots are in zone. He's had since his days with the Rams. I mean, he used to destroy Coach Carroll's defenses, just finding where that hole was going to be every time in coverage. Not always breaking out and clearing out, where he's running this route and just it's separation. Just sometimes he's catching you in zone and he just finds that little pillowy soft spot in your zone, which look at this. Look how pillowy soft that is. You got the Patriots in essentially a real deep look here. So you're able to just catch him nice and soft right up under the middle. Just come to a stop right where you find your space. This seems like a straightforward thing that a lot of receivers at the pro level should know how to do, but it is not. A lot of guys will run themselves through the coverage or won't ever sit down. They just keep moving when they're supposed to have sat down. There's a real almost kind of art form to it. I'm not trying to make too much of these, but these were just solid plays throughout. He played really well. Just again, sit down in the coverage, feel the leverage, sit down. Another nice route here, comes to a stop quick. Top of your screen. Sam did a good job delivering this ball quick. Again, going to extend the run, never go down there easy, never die easy. So you're always going to get with Kupp. And final catch here with him on Patriot game, where again led your Seahawks on the day in receptions. A little bit of a struggle getting the ball to JSN. Injuries to JSN. Here's a nice little first down catch. Again, notice how he's operating out of the outside, like I said. So, league career high usage rate operating from the outside in the defense this year. Just what you get here. Nice little route, sort of sells it to the inside to get back outside. You can see him getting right past the first down marker, running the route precisely, getting past the first down marker, not in front of it. Again, creating separation on the play, where by the time Sam's looking over to him, that's a very nice, easy read for Sam right there, isn't it? He's looking right at him by the time he gets to his reads on him, and he's got the space to throw that to the spot without having to worry about that cornerback undercutting the route because Cooper Kupp's run such a nice route. You can just notice the subtlety too of it. He's not running this inside like he cuts it inside, up the field and outside. He just naturally angles this thing inside with the leverage and then rounds it out. So really kind of selling that this thing's got a real potentiality here of going inside and then just takes it out. So not amazing reps, just he's going to get the job done and run the route the proper way and be in the right spot at the right time. All that good stuff. One other thing I wanted to show off with this was a little bit of what you also got last year between these guys, and it's going to be a part of the final factor I talk about in regards to Kupp when we get to kind of my final point with it. But this is the two-man game you could run off these guys. Sometimes you would stack them where Kupp's on the line and then JSN's behind him, JSN's on the line, Cooper Kupp's off him, behind him, but they're right on the same side of the field and they're right next to each other. Sometimes it's, as you'll see another one of these cut-ups in a second, you will have JSN and then shotgun, but then Cooper Kupp to his side of the field. So Kupp first kind of runs through the coverage to kind of feel what's what. JSN's coming around the back of him behind him. So they'll kind of run it that way a little bit as well. But here you can see JSN runs a really nice pick play here for him. Runs it out. Kupp runs it real nice. Just got to stay right off the back butt here of your receiver, don't you? Because if you cut this too quick, you're going to allow that cornerback to undercut it. So you can't do this too quick, but you want to get him caught on that pick with JSN right there at the top of your screen. So JSN with a nice pick, and then look at that. He can just break right out of that. But those guys really worked together on their routes well last year as well. This is just a really good representation of it that leads to a touchdown reception for Kupp. But a really nice job between those two guys. They got some really good chemistry and working together, and they're both really tough receivers because they can kind of run any route in the game, and they're very hard to tell when they're going to break out of their route. So you get two of those guys to one side of the field, and especially if you're attacking a particular player that struggles with those type of guys, like maybe I'm a guy that deals better with size and physicality and length, I get those sort of twitchier, you're going this way, you're going that way, and I'm going to have a little bit of a harder time with that. And that does exist in the NFL, where you guys have guys that have one strength to one side or the other, and this is how you can attack week in and week out, trying to go, hunt out those kind of matchups, those kind of mismatches, if you will. The other part I talked about, which was such a cool part about Kupp last year, I know Jackson played a lot on the outside last season as well, but just the ability to play outside as much as he did really, really did stand out. Here you can see that this is really not even a condensed split at this point. He's top of your screen, working from the top, another crossing route here does a good job of keeping. I think with the crossing route is because it takes so long to get across the field. Any kind of press that you get off the line of scrimmage or any disruption of the route is going to be bad, bad, bad. You've got to be able to get out there clear because it's going to take so long to get your ass down that field to the spot. So here does a good job of making sure I ain't getting touched here, keeps himself physically free of him, creates the separation, and then Sam was just another one of those, like, goodness throws. Like, why was he a top 5 pick? For being able to make these kind of throws. You know, that's what will help. Outside Kupp, man. No longer just the slot man. We got a little bit of outside love for him here. Again, he's going to be top of your screen, so keep your eyes there on this play. Gets up, in breaking route here. He's not really open here at this first point from Sam's perspective because you have the defender lurking. Sam's trying to be careful with this ball. So he waits for the defender to get through, but it's always a good route whenever you get the defender at the top of your screen there to slip. Whoop. You've made a nice cut when you've made that happen. It's just a slippery spot in the field. Somebody spit there or something maybe. But he stays with the route, extends the play out, gets himself in a position where Sam can throw this late. And again, yes, makes that catch as a toe tag, drag swag. I told you he's got that. He's nice like that. And he makes the catch. So good little bit of chemistry between him and Sam. You saw that as well last year. Again, working from the outside in the Rams game. Second game of the season. Bottom of your screen. Into condensed. This would be the condensed kind of deal, right? He's not out a line far wide. You bring him in. But technically still working out of the outside, technically speaking. Runs a little corner route. And this was such a clutch time of game where you needed this play. Sam needed this throw. You needed this catch. And it's both just an unbelievable throw by Sam and an unbelievable catch by Kupp. Again, toe tag, drag, swag, yes. Look at Kupp on this play. Watch my man just get his jaw realigned. He had every bone in his back pop after this hit. Pop, 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 pop. Great catch by Kupp. You've got very little time to reel this ball in. He shows those late hands, reels it in fast to get the feet down and drags the feet. Drag those feet at the end. Look at that. Look at that. Where I play that boom and drag. Got it. Beautiful catch by Kupp. Beautiful, beautiful catch by Kupp. Oh, wait, you guys can't see anything. Well, that would help. Sorry, it was playing okay, and then it wasn't. Bring it back on here. Sorry about that, guys. All right. Again, back in here. My bad about that. It was showing up and then it didn't show up all of a sudden there. So Kupp, bottom of your screen here. Sam and shotgun, late in the game. You're driving down. You need this play. Kupp runs a nice little corner route. Sam just gets decked. Kupp, drag and catch. Run a couple times since you guys didn't see him there before. My bad. Just again, the toe tag, drag, swag here, just bang, and then just gets, you got to make the catch, get the foot down, and then you got to drag that back foot. How many guys have we watched through the years that'll step out of bounds to that right foot there rather than get that drag? And then watch Sam. Look at Sam just gets his just complete, that's jaw reconstruction surgery. That's a Beverly Hills plastic surgeon. That's just not a fun day at the office. That's Jared Verse hitting you right in the chops and you delivering a ball right on the spot on time. That's my quarterback. That's my quarterback. Another one. I'm bringing some of these up for different reasons, but this is another one where he worked off the outside here on this play. It's another, I'm kind of showing some of these in just varying forms where some of it's, the versatility he plays with, the skills he's bringing to play. Some of it's the clutch and the timing. I just showed that catch that he made at the end of that Ram game that you needed in that game. I mean, that was absolutely not like, well, it'd be nice if you could, like, you need that kind of play right there. It was absolutely the necessity point. A little bit likewise in this game against the 49ers. This is going to be the second game of the season, just before, the playoff game where things were a little tight in this game. Seattle's trying to kind of put this thing away, put it to bed. Sam's looking for somewhere here. Kupp's initially guarded. Showed you extending him to play a little bit there with the Titans. He does so again here. Feels Sam moving out, moves with Sam, creates a little bit of space, makes the catch, gets the first down. Game over. Division I, first round bye had. So big catches and big moments, playing on the outside, still creating separation, still playing efficiently as a player. All of these things are in play with him as a wide receiver. A couple little just fun ones here. Another one here out to the corner, running deep down the field, go get the first down. And this is in the playoff game itself. Again, from the end, notice here, this isn't him being a slot man, slot demon. He's on the outside here. He's technically in a Z, they'd call it, because you're about a yard off the ball here. So he's in Z positioning, but he's on the outside nonetheless. It's off the line, drives up the route, gets to that corner, makes the catch, feet down, first down. Last one, and I'm going to show you one other part of his game that we just don't talk to me enough about, and a big factor in the run game going forward. Nothing better here, nothing more cinematic, nothing more tasty than being able to seek the revenge out on your team. And there was a story last year, of course, that in that second game with the Seahawks and Rams, that the Seahawks coaches were coming to this was, by the way, has not been discounted or denied or whatever. Well, I think the Rams tried to deny it, but it's definitely was confirmed by the Hawks, and that their coaches were coming to the elevator and the Ram coaches were laughing because Kupp had a fumble at the end of that half in that game. And that they were like, sort of snickering a little bit. And just so nice for him to come back in this game and go get a touchdown catch, a game where, again, he had a share of targets. He got some catches. He was productive in this game. He came up big in a couple of moments in this game where you need him, and had a third down catch in this game where he stretched and rolled and extended and was able to get the first down to allow Seattle to really drain the clock at that time. Here again, outside receiver position, breaks inside, finds the soft spot in the zone, finishes the run. It's a lot of what we've already kind of seen, just a feel for what's going on here. Sam kind of throws him open here. You can see, watch his kind of body language here as he goes. You can watch him, he kind of starts to sound, goes, whoa, get to that ball. And Sam does him right. Sam feels where the hole's going to be in that zone, throws him into basically that hole, and then Kupp just falls forward. So we hopefully still have shown that there's plenty there in the tank for him as a wide receiver should you need it. That shouldn't be hopefully in question here at this point. The other place I just wanted to show that is, of course, before I get to the final point of this, would be the last little spot of what I want to show to him as a player and what he brings to the stage, which is, of course, the run blocking. And this kind of matters when you're going to be a team that's 29th in passing attempts, that's going to run the ball as frequently as the Seattle Seahawks do, that you're going to need to have guys that are going to be able to run block across the board. And if you can have wide receivers that can be top-end run blockers, this is the makings of big runs. Because now you can start to do some fun things as far as not only do you have a wide receiver who's going to be able to block his cornerback assignment and neutralize him out of the play, but that can happen a lot of times, often just by the fact that the cornerback doesn't have the spirit, want, or will to get in there and want to tackle. They're there to cover, man. They're there for interceptions, bro. That's what they're there to do. So there are those guys naturally. The thing you like what you can do when you can set it up is when you can eventually get them down sometimes to pin block and go get down on a defensive end. Can you handle that task? Is that too much? Because now I can take that guy away with you. I can create another blocker for somebody else down the field, and maybe I can isolate that corner one-on-one with my running back, and I know my running back's going to win that matchup. I know he's going to break that tackle. So I just wanted to show a few of the blocks here. This one's not a fancy one. He's on the right outside of your shoulder coming into screen. But he's going to get his hat on his hat. He's not going to whiff. He's going to take the man up and keep him essentially busy to the point the running back's going to be sprung and allowed to go get done what they need to go get done. So I want to show you a couple of these. Let's go in order here. Kupp here again, sliding down. This isn't a pin block, but this is very similar where you're going off your cornerback who's basically across from you. You're going to slide down. We're going to slide you down here. Take out 34, Jackson's there with you to give you a double team, but you've got it handled. Jackson could have peeled up here onto the second level and you would have been just fine. Still, he's at the center of it. Cooper Kupp's the center man here in springing this run. Both Jackson and him do just a great job here of just look at the little wall with them there. But Jackson could have gone up because he laid the block so well. And he even gets his body turned really nicely on the shield here as Walker goes past. See how he kind of shields his body between defender and Walker? So there's not a chance for that defender to kind of get an arm out or hold Walker back. He keeps him between man and ball. Few of these runs, as I said, these runs oftentimes will come on the back of the wide receiver getting a key block done on the play because oftentimes wide receivers just don't like to block very much. Just kind of not their thing. And again, here you're going to get him as a leading fullback. Tell me how many wide receivers you can do with this. He essentially is starting out as an H-back tight end in his alignment here. Saubert would be kind of your inline guy here, though he is standing up like a receiver. Kind of an interesting look from Seattle. But you're going to see number 10 there to the left-hand side of your screen. Slide back over to the right post, snap, and operate like a fullback in the hole here. And then he, doesn't clear his way. Walker reverses field and gets a big play. But just the fact that you have the comfort to use your wide receiver like this from that look, not a lot of teams would do it. Rams would do it with Puka, for sure. You'd see them do this kind of thing, but not unless you have a lot of supreme amount of faith that you can pull this off. And it's nice to have this as an ability to call upon a guy who you can feel comfortable to be able to do this type of stuff. Walker just happened to have one of his, I'm a reverse field, flip it back around again, come back over here, moves. Again, almost kind of like the fullback leading in the hole here a little bit against the Titans. He's operating almost, again, quasi sort of H-back tight end type here in how you're using Kupp on this play. He comes up, gets his block sealed, gets his man out of the play, first down run by Charbonnet. So not just getting an okay block, not just getting it done, driving his man out of the play on the play, being the centerpiece point of the run and the run that just got sprung bigly. So he's got this to you. This is one of the better ones here too as well. Just there's a variety of these on tape, folks. We could spend all day looking at some of his run blocks from the season. He's not the best in the league, but still very strong at what he's doing in this regard. And you're asking him to do the high degree of difficulty. So when you look at necessarily the run blocking grades for Kupp, which are very good, which are very strong in this league, also keep in mind, those grades aren't taking into account the degree of difficulty you're asking him to block versus other wide receivers who would be asked to strictly just stay on the cornerbacks on the outside, not have to get down to a linebacker, not have to pin block a defensive end, not have to be the lead fullback on a play. Here you're going to get him to the right side of your field. He's down as in a very condensed split here, very tight in his alignment again, down just where it's all dirty and the boys are big and strong. And, he's not necessarily built like that, but he's willing to do that. And that's what you get from him here. Again, just gets his play locked up nice, gets a little pancake, springs Charbonnet for a nice big run down the field. And there's nothing about this play that isn't just great. Just throws him out of the way. Shout out to Jake Bobo getting work done on the outside as well. Both those guys combo. Little two-piece platter on that one. Look at Kupp there. All legal. Never at a point where your hands are a little wide at first, but just it's quickly taken away. No official's going to call it on that. And then just wash him out. Great stuff. So receiving, being efficient as a wide receiver, still bringing that to the table, having that to offer, yes. Being able to operate as not just merely the slot-only guy. Well, he's an old-ass slot, broken-down slot receiver. Like, what are you guys doing? And you're paying him that amount of money? No, he's not that. As I showed, he just played at a career-high rate on the outside, as I just showed with a variety of different snaps. He was successful playing outside. So he's not just playing on outside from a percentage snap standpoint. He's also making catches, making receptions. He did this last year. When you look at it, you can't just look at the baseline productivity of it and say, well, here's his yards and here's his catches, because you had an offense that was playing from ahead more than it was from behind at a hyper amount, that you 29th in the NFL in passing attempts. And then you have well over a third of the rest of the target share of your passing attempts going to one single player not named Cooper Kupp. It just doesn't leave much meat left on the bone for anybody else to have any kind of statistical impact. That can't be the measurement in this case for the player. It can't. Not on a championship team. You could maybe accuse me of drumming something up on this if this is a team that's not very good and I'm trying to, but when it's a player that's doing what he's doing on this team, that's having this kind of success, he is a representation of why this team is successful. There are stars, but it is about the collective, and it is about those individual collective parts that bring many different cool things to the table. That it's not just he's a third down and Kupp guy, so he's just going to give me my first downs when we need it on 3rd and 4s. That's all he kind of brings. It's like, well, no, he's played all 3 wide receiver positions, blocks his ass off, can be efficiently productive, clutch for you, still good after the catch, route running on point, hands still very good. Like, all that's there with him. And then we've got that final factor I've been teasing here, which is, of course, his ability to be almost a de facto, but to be a de facto coach on the football field. I think it's no coincidence that you get the development of both a Puka and a Jackson Smith and Jigba, 2 guys that, in some ways got to be under the wing here of Cooper Kupp in the early part of their career, and a guy that has studied this sport and studied how to play the position and has had to, in a lot of ways, grind for all of the success that he's gotten in his career, including coming from that small college. This wasn't a former 5-star guy. This is a guy that's had to, chip away every inch of the way of his pro experience in order to get what he's got. But he was a major part of what they did last year, and a big part of that being his input in the locker room, both to helping young wide receivers come along, to being able to help offensive coaches out, see things on the field, recognize stuff. Hey, get this implemented here. They're weak with this. We can attack them there with this. And you really do still have some more further upside here on this when you start to think about a guy like this who maybe works at his best when he has a quarterback who he and the quarterback can be completely on the same page in every way. And then it's hard to get that all accomplished in just 1 year, even if you've done some off-season stuff with them. But when you do start to get that multi-year situation going on, now you can get more of that connection between quarterback and receiver. And now they're going to be even tighter on those option routes and being in sync when they need to change things up the line of scrimmage. Having that time where they can just share a look and know what the other is going to do. And when you got Cooper Kupp as the guy that can be that kind of guy for you, he's smart enough to be that kind of guy. So even a chance here that we get even more productivity from him this year, even with the Rashid Shaheed. But don't let the national audience on this one sell you a story or try to tell you that somehow Cooper Kupp's shot, washed, spent. That's not the player that we got last year. And that we are a champion last year because he is part of our receiving core and a very elemental part of this receiving core. It was a no-brainer situation this offseason to bring him back, even at the cost that it's going to take to bring him back, because the value makes it well worth it when you look at all that he does bring to the table. You guys let me know, though. You feeling the same way about this with Cooper Kupp? Are you seeing it as I saw it? I'd love to hear from you guys here in the comments section. If you can for me, please hit that like button. Please also do subscribe. We'll pop over and check on you guys here in the chat, but I would just like to, if I could quickly hear me and Pumpkin would like to give a little shout out, if we may, to the sponsor of this show. And the sponsor of this show is Prize Picks. Prize Picks, the #1 sports app running the game today. And when you use my code HMA, when you do a $5 lineup, they'll put $50 into your account. We got basketball playoffs cooking up. You might have some picks there you like. You got baseball going right now here as it speaks. So you can get on that. Do the daily fantasy, the weekly fantasies on that. They got the just straight picks if you want to go that angle of it. The seasonal picks are out on the NFL. So we've got some cool selections out there on that one. As you can see here, I've got Jackson Smith over 1,324 yards and Jacoby Myers over 749 yards because I think the Jaguars are going to kind of use him as a #1 option there, and I think they're going to throw a good amount there. And Jackson, I think, is a no-brainer over 1,324 next year. So those are my early picks here. I've also got Jadarian Price over 725, but please do utilize my code today. That's HMA. Go out there, put your sports knowledge to the test. Go out there and win some money on the back of it. Terms and conditions do apply. Please do see their site for details. And please, folks, always remember, Pumpkin would tell you as well, always remember to gamble responsibly. All right, let's bounce over to you guys in the chat. Thank you guys for watching and checking out the show today. You guys are awesome for that. Again, if you can, just smack that like button if you could for me a little bit. It does help the channel grow and show. I appreciate it as well. John Naylor, starting us off right with a $2 donation. Thank you for that, John. Rams coaches laughed at Kupp. Hawks got the last laugh. I don't remember a time in NFL history, John, of a team trying to talk a player into retiring that a player that still wanted to play, that still had love for the game, that still felt that they had something to offer to the game, was being pushed so heavily by that team to go down. Because it wasn't like Kupp had not done nothing over the past couple of years. I mean, okay, so he's not the Triple Crown point, but it was still a guy that was, 800 yards, 764 yards, 800 yards, something like 17 receiving touchdowns. This is a 3-year period. While he's oftentimes not being necessarily always the number one targeted guy at that point, and there were a little bit of injuries even at that time, a little bit, but still being pretty productive. And to push on him that hard, that's where I come back to thinking that, to me, it just sort of speaks to, they were worried. They were worried that this guy that they, they had a little bit of redundancy between him and Puka, and maybe not the faith that they could make it work between the two of them in the offense they wanted to run. And especially going to 13 personnel like they have, where it's just 1 or 12 person, where you're just going to one wide receiver on the field at times. Some of it's understandable from Ram perspective, because they wanted Devontae Adams, a true X out there, and that was their route they needed to go. And we had to go find our true X as well at one point or another. So, but that's where you go to, well, could you have just kept them all? Did you have to pick, did Kupp have to go in order to make way for Devontae? Maybe, with their salary cap. But the fact that I think that you had them talking him out like that, that's so unique of a situation to have happen. And then you have the coaches laughing at Kupp on the fumble at the end of the half. Somehow, what they were saying. What that laugh was about. They weren't laughing just because of fumble. They're like, see, we were right. You guys are trying to get this done with damaged goods. Good luck. And it almost led to a fight, by the way, between the Seahawks coaches and the Ram coaches, because the Hawk coaches weren't really wanting to hear that. And good for them, by the way. Nor should you. Don't let somebody in our stadium and building act like that. Disrespectful as hell, especially for that team that should be nothing but highly respectful of Kupp and what he brought to that franchise, which, including the championship that they got hang. That's the year that he went and got the Triple Crown. I think he was not mistaken. I think he was the MVP of the Super Bowl. So it's like, there's a guy that just deserves respect, if anything. They didn't give him that. But we got to be the beneficiary of it. Jeffrey Thistle, thank you for 48 months. I said 48 months as a Hawks Nest member. Appreciate that long-time support. Dare I say, our future 3-time Super Bowl champ, Cooper Kupp. He was looking jacked in early camp interviews. He seems really happy here. Yeah, he's wanted. If you as a player that's done what he's done in the Rams, for them to arrive as they kind of arrived so quickly. And yeah, it's been 4 years removed since your 2,000-yard season. But at the same point in time, as I said, you'd been good for them. He fitted to what they want from their players, and your losing of him just means that you've got to replace him in some way or another at that point. And who knows, maybe the Rams are better for it at this point. I can't say. I think we're better for it. I know that. And, when guys like Ernest Jones and Cooper Kupp win Super Bowls at two different places, there's a reason that they're doing it. And we get caught up at times in abilities and what a player brings to the field. And, we oftentimes don't think about some of the extra stuff that's there. What are you bringing to the locker room? What are you bringing to the huddle? What are you bringing cerebrally? What is your intuition like? What is it like? There's some things and factors of stuff that we don't even really ever take measurement, myself included on this, that is a big part of the puzzle of what makes great teams, and probably should be given more acclaim and factor to the process. But that's one where I think teams get cute at times, thinking about things as like a Madden game, or that they can just sort of stack talent, or that you don't need these kind of players in the background that can help things out past what just your coaches bring to play. That you just have a bunch of individual players that are all kind of learning everything at the same time and trying to just all figure it out collectively. Having the wise guy in the room that's seen there and been that and can tell you about everything, has an answer for every question. It's mighty nice to have, especially when you're talking about the third youngest roster in football, especially when you're talking about Jackson Smith just still early in his career and Horton early in his career. But he does look happy to be here, and how even nice it is on top of all this that we get a guy that gets this kind of not even a redemptive story, but just another act to their career kind of story, and the ultimate success, and then get to do it in a hometown state, the hometown kid. That part to me just makes it the ultimate cool part of this, is that we got a guy that would have been great to have him here his whole career, but to get him here at the end and, maybe go get him another one. I'm just going to say, hopefully that would be enough, Jeffrey, to push Kupp to be like, maybe I'm going to retire in the Hall of Fame as a Hawk. I got a couple years there, a couple Super Bowls there. It's where was the bigger impact? I don't know. You know what I mean? But it's a very cool story. And we've got a few of those on this team, but he's just one of them. Hell of a player too. John, thank you for another $5 donation. Appreciate you for that, John. It was our coach. It was our linebacker coach, Partridge, not an offensive coach, that went after the Rams coach. That's how much Kupp meant to us. Ooh, I like it. John's got some spicy details here from the fight. I dig that. And 12 is 1, John. You know what I mean? Offense, defense, it doesn't matter. Don't matter.
We did not care.
We did not care. Don't talk about stuff. You're in our house right now. You need to be silent. You need to treat this like a church. You guys had your nice little first half. Enjoy it while it lasted. Don't be talking trash about our players and expect we're just going to stand here and take it. And this elevator ride, that was a tense-ass elevator ride too. You got a bunch of dudes in that ride on testosterone replacement therapy, right? Mid 50-year-old dudes that are just looking for a reason. In the middle of the game with all of the intensity that brings with it, John, and just, ready to chew on nails kind of energy. And then one of these coaches starts popping off in the elevator. Ooh, Kupp with his hands, huh, bro? It's tough. It's tough. That's how I picture all the Rams coaches laugh, by the way. All of them. You're the best, though, John. Thank you for the donation. And shout out to Partridge for standing on business. Stand on business. Rams doing Kupp unduly dirty. Some organizations you can maybe go to be like, well, he quit on us and he stopped working and he stopped caring and he just started collecting paychecks. And okay, I get it on those. Maybe those moments you get a little salty, but when the guy's been nothing but a good soldier for you, don't you just kind of go, best of luck to you, tip of the hat. Thank you for all you've done, sir. Thank you for your service. That kind of thing. Does picking the Pats make the Pats more daunting week 1? Yeah. I mean, it makes it tougher matchup, Oiler Titan, sure. I don't think it, I don't think it necessarily cements it for sure with him, but there's no doubting that not just him, but getting, what was it? I think they got Romeo Dobbs there too. So they've upgraded both of their starting 2 wide receivers. I just offer that I don't know if there's been a lot other than that really addressed on their team beyond that, and that we were pretty far ahead of them at the end of last season to where even picking up a couple of receivers might broach some of the gap, but I don't know if it eliminates it. But it doesn't make it easier, that's for sure. Earl J. Cahole says, I think Kupp has a good body control that JSN does. He's just old. You see how easily juked that dude? Nothing flashy. JSN moves his body sometimes like that too to shed tackles. Indeed. Yeah, it's kind of a subtle thing. In football, sometimes those guys can be so good at catching as they can kind of catch, and it's not even that they're looking away from the ball, but they can kind of more just start to sense and feel the defender coming, and be it hit the brakes, or if I just angle my body a certain way here, I can get around this on the other side of this. I'll be able to break this tackle fairly easily. There's those guys that do more of the jukes and spin moves and stiff arms. C-Town, hey Brando, is the Seahawks offensive playbook basically the same? Yeah, it's not. I'd say it's not even basically the same. It should be just about almost exactly the same note for note. So Kubiak's not far enough removed as far as, he runs. I'd say he runs the same playbook. He just likes to run with a little bit more aggressiveness than maybe the typical San Francisco Shanahan system would run, where there'd be a little bit more willingness to kind of stay short and keep it in that place where he gets a little bit more of, you're going to start to squeeze my short routes, I'm taking my shots kind of energy. But that's more of a play calling thing than it is a playbook thing. Yeah, Oiler Titan, the NFL would love to get the Chiefs back and rolling, man, if they could. No doubt about that. Or Titan, what happens if Jordan stays healthy and gets 750 yards, but JSN comes back to 1,100 yards from 1,700 yards? I mean, it's possible. I think that the hard part for a guy like Horton and a hard part for even a guy like, I think, Shaheed at times on this is going to be that, those guys are good receivers, but you're going to have a lot of time that you're going to be in 12 personnel and 13 personnel and I formation looks. So 21, Oiler, So it's like, how much are you going to be in the spots where those guys could be healthy and available, but you just don't, you're doing so well and how you're operating from those heavier offensive looks now that are really proliferating in the league. And let's face it, Oiler Titan, you could see this with the draft and how many tight ends got taken in this past draft. The league is leaning heavily into this whole 12 personnel, 13 personnel revolution that's sort of being undertaken, where you have the Rams kind of spearheading it, but we're kind of right along with them, where it's like there's a variety of teams that are doing this, and it's gotten teams' attention, and there's now this slow drift out of 11 personnel, 3 wide receiver sets to go into more of the heavier looks, which is going to make it hard for these extra receivers on rosters, especially when you're on a run-heavy roster. M. Jordan says, hey, Brando, are we supposed to be able to see the plays you're talking about? Oh, sorry. Hopefully you guys were able to see it there. So got that back in there. Quickly. Yeah, Pumpkin's definitely in some attention today. I see down at Brando. How did you get an exclusive interview with Big Cat? Interview with the Big Cat, huh? I don't have I haven't. I'd love to. I've had a hard time. I've tried again this offseason to reach out to player agents, and I must have reached out to about 20 of them. It's hard to get responses from even the agents. So I don't know. One of these days we'll get one of these players talked into it, but they're tough to bring onto the channel, man. They're very elusive. Kendricks wasn't Jake saying Mike Silver made that story up. Why would he make that up? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's such a specific story too to be made up. But I think it got confirmed by Seattle on their side of it. So I'm sure the Rams don't. I mean, let's face it, they're going to try to deny it because it doesn't put them in a good light at all. You're crapping all over you're a legend who you sort of forced out the door before you tried to force him to retire. It's kind of like, it's not exactly the best as a final outlook on a player in the way that you sort of treat him on that. I'm not trying to say like the Rams have done him some like holy dirty to Kupp or something, but it's like, it ain't a good look. And so you're going to try to push back on that, but that don't mean it wasn't true. I'm sure they were feeling themselves at halftime. See, down from a Chiefs fan, I was told McDuffie was traded because he lost a step. I did wonder if McDuffie was so elite, why would he be traded? Yeah, it is kind of interesting, C-Town, especially when you consider the fact that now they have to turn around and allot a top 10 pick to Mansour Delane. I mean, if you just keep McDuffie there and just essentially, have him continue to play and, I mean, some of this probably came down to McDuffie wanting to be paid and that they were in a position of saying like, yeah, we're good on, giving another contract. But, it does make you kind of look at it from a Chiefs perspective on this on like, why would you move a guy like this at 25 years old if he's just so good? If he's just that guy, why would you not keep him, especially for a team in the Chiefs that are not rebuilding? They didn't go into this offseason and do that. Instead, they've seemingly indicated that they're still, especially as you look at like the Kelsey contract, they still seem to be in a position, and the Walker contract for that matter, they're in a position of trying to still compete and go for it. And so we do know in the past that Chiefs have let cornerbacks go like Ladarius Sneed, who, when they let him go, he was kind of at the end, and he signed a big money deal with the Titans when he left. And they let Peters go at one point, literally the Rams. I think they traded him to the Rams, and he was functional for the Rams, but he didn't last a long time with the Rams either. They moved off of him fairly quickly too. So I kind of wanted the same thing there a little bit with it. I don't know if he's lost a full step, but I don't know if he's at as good as he's ever been. I think some of his effectiveness is really based upon what he does from the slot, and that's where he's got to kind of at times have more opportunities from, especially probably as he gets older. And that's going to be problematic a little bit when you've got a guy in the slot for the Rams that they're very happy in keeping in there 24/7, and they don't want to really move off the field. So I'm kind of interested to see how the Rams deal with that. The big cat's ready for my interview? Oh. All right, well, I'll reach out to him, man. I thought I reached out to his people this offseason too. I thought he's on the list of the agents I reached out to. But I'll try to hit him up on Instagram or something. I just don't do anything on Instagram, so they all look at my Insta and they're like, what is this guy doing? But thanks for letting me know, C-Town. I'll reach out to him. I'd love to do that. That'd be great. Baker says if JSN goes from 1,700 to 1,100, angry first fantasy owners, maybe myself. I mean, I would be very surprised by a banker. One thing Sam's shown a good job of, whether they're going to be piling up the wins next year or not, like they did this last year, is that he knows how to target the number one wide receiver. He did it with Justin Jefferson. I think if Jackson is going to go down to 1,100 yards, the only way I could really foresee that would be that the injury has to have come up where he misses like 5 or 6 games. But aside from that, and even if that happened, at least Banker, then you could probably know he's going to be out in a collection of games and have gotten the benefit of the 1,100 yards for the 12 games of the season or whatever, But that's the only way I can see it. Sam's very good about knowing when he's got somebody out there that's like different, built different, Some quarterbacks can't do that as well, where they don't know how as much to use the number one wide receiver. Others are just like, yeah, I'll take advantage of that. Mick says the Steelers are going to stay in the middle, Brandon. Re-signing Rodgers isn't going to do anything to help them. They should have went for a full rebuild. Yeah, they saw the rookie OTAs of Drew Aller, and they're like, yeah, that dream's done. I mean, bless the kid. He's got time. Maybe he'll figure it out. But the footage was not one that spoke to you and said, he can play in 26. So, they're looking at it and they're desperate, Mick. And it's never a good place to be desperate as a franchise, but they are in a desperate place. You don't have any other real quarterback options that are in any place near to what Rodgers is at. I do agree with everything you said, and I don't think this takes them anywhere, but probably the middle. I think we saw last year, as we all predicted here, that the DK Metcalf Rodgers kind of pairing, that may not be the best of pairings. You know what I mean? Like that, there may be other guys you'd want to rather have those two guys. Not that either guy can't be very productive and good players, but just that those two guys together, maybe not the best. But it's an old roster again, Mick. They're making the mistake like the Commanders did last year of trying to take an old defense and thinking that's going to be a good thing. It's like, you got a lot of names there. Yeah. You got a lot of guys, a lot of productivity there. Yeah. You might have multiple Hall of Famers there on that defense. But it's also tremendously old. And what we tend to know about old defenses is that they tend to get shaken up as the year goes along. You're going to lose those guys. They're not going to last. I look at the Steelers situation and I don't understand why for a franchise that's never been cash rich, but's always had a plan. When I grew up in the 80s, when I grew up in the 90s with them in the early 2000s, you could always see that they had a very pertinent plan. They were going to draft and develop better than anybody else in the sport. They had a kind of a long-term view of things. And now it's this weird cycle they've gotten into year in, year out, no matter whether there's new coaches or not now, to where you're going to just keep trying to run it back again, stretch it back out again. And I'm not sure why they've sort of decided to angle in this direction as a franchise, but I agree. I don't think it's going to probably do them any favors. And I guess the one thing that helps is that division's kind of opened up to a degree, and you don't know what you're going to get from anybody in that division to a degree. And it could be a bit like, I think the Steelers are kind of like the equivalent of what the 49ers are in the NFC, where if they can just stay healthy, TJ Watt can just make it through another season. If Cameron Hayward can just make it through another year, if Jalen Ramsey can just give another season of productivity, if they can just get that, then maybe that's enough to get them into the playoffs. But once you get in the playoffs, they're going to get probably exposed pretty quick. I mean, technically the big cat's next year. That's true. Oh, that's what you meant by the big cat. Okay. I'm a little slow today. Jeffrey says he's not Kelsey's wife anymore. His name is Katy Perry. Yeah, Jeffrey, we could have handled Bobby Wagner better. That's for sure, man. Kendrick says, I think we sweep the Niners, AZ, and clinch division in week 17, and Milrow beats the Rams. I'd love, give me all that. I agree with definitely the first two parts. I thought I'd just kind of come back to feeling like the Ram games are going to be two wars at the end of the year once again. But I do just feel like we're probably going to sweep both Niners and Arizona. Niners got a chance in that first matchup. Well, they'll still be healthy a little bit, I think, week 5. But my joke failed. No, it just took me a while to get it. I'm a little slow today, C-Town. And she's definitely about the equivalent cat size to Leonard Williams in human size. So that joke definitely fits. Is Cloudy in our scope? I was on the syndicate 2 weeks ago talking to Dan, and he has got a source connected in with the team that eventually dropped, here and there drops him some tidbits. And his feeling was that the team is looking to get in on Clowney, and that this is though they're going to get in on Clowney, that they're not going to necessarily do it right now. Because Clowney doesn't want to do the old OTA thing. So you're going to look to sign him a little bit later on in the process, probably up around training camp at that point, like July. You'd look to bring him in at that point, Stoney. So, yes, the thought process is Clowney's going to come in. But again, we'll see. This stuff's always fluid, and you never know if there's maybe a trade or something else that could come into play at some point as well. Yeah, I was getting hyped up about my Big Cat interview. Rando, I think C-Town's calling pumpkin fat. Well, she is big. I don't know if I go fat, but I mean, she's on that line. You know what I mean? If this was the roller coaster ride of fatness, she'd probably be up over the line. The scales would probably, you may take this ride. God love her, but she's well fed. Banker Steelers should have signed Cousins to a 3-year, $120 million signing. I'd at least get that one better than this one, probably. Because Rodgers, you got to go through the whole thing that he brings to the table. And at least with Cousins, it's kind of the same risk factor. Like they're right around the same age. Is Rodgers outperforming Cousins and you don't get the circus? I'd be in the same place, Banker. But that's that thing where it's like they want to kind of like, maybe what I get the impression of with the Steelers is they're in that crap or get off the pot kind of feeling here where, they know they probably should lean into a rebuild, but then they've got the age on the roster and they've got the players that they've spent the money on, like Hayward, like Watt, where the sunk cost is already there. You've thrown the ducats out. And so you feel impelled to try to push the roster to try to go compete, whether it's really set to do so. You got the DK Metcalf contract and the trade that came with that impels you to a certain degree from a roster standpoint to still try to go for it. But then you also kind of know, because you're a smart organization and you've tended in your history to have more of a longer outlook to things, that also is pulling at you going, yeah, but let's not go too much with this, right? Let's not overdo this. Let's also keep kind of the back door open so we can always scramble out the back if we come to find that this thing is really at the end as we think it might be close to. And so I agree with you, but I think that this is where you can look at some of the criticism of the Steelers as an organization right now and peel back off of that. This is why it's failing. This is why it's not going right for you guys. You got to pick a lane. Which side of the fence do you want to be on here? Quit straddling. And I think the Steelers year in, year out, a little more straddling, a little more reactionary, a little bit more of a, okay, this happened, now we'll try to do this. Okay, that happened. Or versus, how do we get a championship truly here? How do we build a true championship roster? And does that get done operating with a year-to-year tactical approach? Probably not. Well, not. Oh. Shoot. A couple of other donations here. Thank you guys for that. Feed me. Appreciate the $2 donation. Does the team go 80% cover 2 for Torrey, JSN, and Rashid? No, unfortunately not. I mean, it's one where you're going to run a good amount of cover 2 at times when you've got those guys out there for sure. But the problem with cover 2 becomes oftentimes, teams don't have as many guys that can run the press stuff. So old school used to run cover 2 where it's not just the safeties dropping into their side of the field and coverage deep, but then you've got the corners that are supposed to run press and trail, where that doesn't always get run. Sometimes now you can run cover 2 without the press and trail, but that's how it's tended to be run best. You tend to want to have like a middle linebacker in the middle of the hash marks running up the middle of the field. Some of this stuff can't be done as much now as just a, we're going to go, we go to cover 2, we can have our linebacker there and we're going to be just fine. Teams are going to attack up the seam. They're going to attack middle linebackers that struggle in coverage at that point. They're going to run flood zone concepts through the middle of the field while your 2 safeties are dropping to depth if you're hyper predictable in how you run it. And that's why when we showed like the graph of Seattle and their defense, it's as much of you're going to have one coverage you run more than others, but that you're over 10% on everything. You are a threat coverage-wise post-snap to run anything. And you have to kind of operate in that manner in this day and age in the NFL because offensive coordinators are just too smart to where if you give them a tell like that, they will carve you up like a turkey, like a turkey on Thanksgiving. I mean, it is. But there will be a little bit of that, you get the cover, you'll get cover 6 in there too. You'll get the, little palms maybe built in there. There's some variety of deep coverages you can kind of run in there. But they're going to have to be careful. That's for sure. And as we saw, I think the more that Sam gets comfortable in understanding, what Rashid can do and what that speed brings to the field, and that teams are going to start to angle more of their coverage to JSN's direction, that just gives him more of that opportunity to get over there and find that other receiver there with the one-on-one deep and know that if that guy can outrun that cornerback and he's gone. It's done. And Horton's got some of that too to his game. And of course, Darnold used that a couple times last year as well. And being able to take advantage of that. So you'll get a lot of it, but probably they gotta remain a little balanced with it. Can't get too predictable. OCs are just too good with that type of stuff. We got Ski Nation in the house. Thank you for the $20 donation, Ski. Very kind of you. Appreciate you so much, man. Let's go. Thank you, Ski. Feed Me, John. You guys all also members of the channel. So thank you for all that support. That is very kind of you. Been on Graveyard for months. I'm finally catching a live. Stoked for this year, dude. It's hard to find 2 losses on the schedule. Chiefs are so overrated, and the soft landing is a nice change, it feels like. And screw the Rams. Hey, screw the Rams. And let's not forget, we got one more here. Screw the Rams and
damn, fuck the 49ers. Yeah, fuck the 49ers.
Forget. It's got to be a bit of both here on this one, Ski. Got to be a bit of both, my man. And I think a lot of us share the same confidence. I think hell, I was doing the B&B show with Brendan, and he had I think only 3 losses on the schedule. I was at 4, trying to be kind of in as much a realistic place as I can be to agree. But I was also trying to do a little bit of the, do I think on the surface of it I lose to the Chargers at home? Well, no, or the Cowboys at home, or you got to kind of find one of those games on the schedule that you're targeting in on that you say, this is the one, and there just doesn't feel many of those. I really locked in on like that Bronco game as much because you're on the short week and you're coming off the Niner game, but that's really like one of those only kind of games. And yeah, some of it speaks to how good you are and dominant you are as a team. Sure. Some of it though speaks to, like you say, a little bit of the, soft landing that exists there, in my opinion, on this schedule, where it's just really evenly distributed. You're flying only 22,000 miles this year versus like the 33, 34, 35 you would have flown in previous years, or like your other competitions having to fly within this division this year. It's really suited well. And, the Chiefs are going to be a very interesting team because they are a little bit also, I think in that same manner, a bit like what you've seen from as I spoke about the Niners and just spoke about the Steelers here, Ski Nation. I think the Chiefs are another team that you can put in this same pocket of teams, being that these are teams that I think they have a little bit more of an understanding of how to build, the championship roster there. They've proven that, but they've also a team that seems a little bit in that middle ground place of things where we talk about teams that are in purgatory. Are the Chiefs going to suddenly slide into there in this next year? Because you've got now Mahomes coming off the major injury and getting older. You have an offensive line that still feels like it's still one of the weaker offensive lines Mahomes has had since he's gotten there. You have a receiving core that still has way more question marks to me than it does answers. You have Kelsey trying to trot it out there for another year when he seems to be pretty supremely diminished over the past couple of years. And the defense, which has been, really the Anheuser-Busch horse that has pulled the cart for that team here in recent years, really has taken its share of hits over the past couple of years. And from edge rushers moving on to losing both your starting 2 cornerbacks to your starting safety, who's still a very good player. I know they've done some good work, but I don't think like their offense, their offseason overcame all that. And while it's nice to get Walker, Andy Reid's got a little bit of the same problem that McVay has, where he's got this like kind of an all-timer type quarterback, and it gets very hard not to want to use that all-timer type quarterback, especially when it's in the lieu of trying to run the ball, especially if the running game isn't being terribly effective on a given day. And so, and they'll even sometimes bail on it when it's being effective. So we'll see how it goes with them, Ski. I thought they had a little bit of an odd offseason to me, where they didn't really fully pick the lane of really trying to soup this thing up and run it back again truly, Ski. They kind of said, we'll do a couple of things. We'll sign this Walker contract, but then we're also going to move McDuffie and let Watson go and let Leo Chanel go and let our safety go. And we're going to rely upon Chris Jones to, again, at 35 years old, to be this sort of centerpiece. And he was slowing down last year, and he was getting beat up last year. I don't know, man. I share with you a little bit of a lack of understanding on, how this is going to work for that Chiefs team. And I do see it as a win as well, Ski. It's a game that's at home. I expect that one to be a dub, primetime game. I think you're going to get that going. Speaking to it as well, it's a little known fact, little talked about fact, is just how good Seattle's been historically speaking in primetime matchups. And I mean that historically. I don't just mean that like this decade, this year, but again, 73, 42, and 21 in primetime games in the Seattle Seahawks history. That's a 63.4% winning percentage, which is pretty good. One of the best all time, if I'm not mistaken on that. So I like our chances, man. I'm glad to hear that you're able to get the live checked out. Hopefully you're not working too hard out there, brother. Really appreciate all of your support, again, as well as being a member of the channel. We're going to get a call-in show here for members of the channel soon. I want to hear from you guys personally on what you think about this offseason and how it went and your thoughts on it and all that good stuff. But you're the man, Ski. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you. I'm glad we got you in here on the live, brother. It's good to see you. I'm feeling good about this year, bro. I'm going to have confidence going in. I feel settled. I just don't feel like Seattle could be in a better position. Really, if you guys think about this quantitatively, you have the third youngest roster in the NFL, winning a Super Bowl, kind of stealing a Super Bowl before anybody thinks that they're even ready to do so. Now they come back this year. They don't really lose anything of significant note outside of Walker, which you could make an argument you've largely replaced or have at least in-house the replacements to get the job done there. And then you're still sitting on all this money to still go make some other moves, to still go do some other things if you want to go do so, if you need to go do so. You got this injury that happens over here, and we go make this trade for this and give up that, and we're right back on. You've got some built-in insurance policies, depth across the board. I'm as confident as this team as I possibly could be, Ski. And hopefully they're going to it's all about now really just, you guys have that hunger. I mean, you got the goods. You got the talent. You got the team. You got the coaching. You got the cap space. Do you have the hunger coming off that Super Bowl champion? Are you going to let off the stick a little bit? Are you going to ease up? Or are you going to be satiated? And you never know until a man becomes a champion how they're going to react and which way they're going to sway on that one. But they should be really good, man. And you're great. Thank you for the support, brother. You as well, Jeffrey. Appreciate the $5 donation. I got Price at more than 1,000 yards rushing, 12 wins, more than that, and JSN under 1,500 yards because I think we will spread the ball out more. Also, D leading the league in scoring. Thoughts? I think it'd be pretty easy for me across the board for you to say, on the first three, I'm definitely in alignment with you. No doubt about that. I think Price is going to be right up around that 1,000-yard place of things. So it's like, he might, that's the one where it might break your heart, Jeffrey, if you put that pick down. Where I like the over on the 725 on Prize Picks for Price, because that's where it's like, I think he ends up at like that 950-yard place of things, where you just find your heart broken because he's just short. But yes, I think he's in around that 1,000-yard place, basically where you're at. Going plus 1,000 is not a bad way to roll with it. I'm with you on the 12 wins. I do think JSN has less than the 1,500 yards because it's just, you have an ability at that point, I think, to do more, spreading the ball around. I also think teams are going to go through this offseason looking at the Seahawks tape, and they're going to walk away with it with soft game plans of driving more double teams in JSN's direction. So I also think it's going to be a little bit of that too. D's leading the league in scoring. You're going up against the best offenses you're going to go up against in the NFL next year would be, the Bears, the Rams twice, the Cowboys, The 49ers, depending on where they're at, it's kind of the best of what you're going to have to face. So, there are offenses in this schedule that you can maybe really get up on top of. And I think it's as much going to be about how maybe you shut down those teams. Can you do a thing to the Panthers like you did last year? Can you take down an Eagle team that might be still kind of trying to find their way as far as offensively speaking goes? Broncos on the road, you kind of took Knicks to task a couple of years ago. Can you do similar again there? Those are a couple of those there that are going to have to go a certain way. And it's a little bit of a harder schedule this year to get that point. But I think in general terms, there's nothing wrong with going with that pick. They're going to be once again a dominant defense. They're once again going to get stops and teams off the field, and kind of doesn't matter who they play because they're returning so much talent. There's just going to be some natural development there within. But I like your picks, Jeffrey. I'm on it. The price one's maybe the one I'm a little bit worried about, just because I think that's that heartbreaker one. That's that one that just feels so good, and then you get so close to it, and it's just like, he's got 979 yards for the season. Like, damn it. Feed me. Thank you for the $2 donation. The Steelers are waiting for an O-line before a quarterback. Maybe so. They're trying to put a lot into it. I'll give them that. Feed me. They're dumping a good amount of assets into that thing to try to make that thing go. So you've got to give them a tip of the nod in doing at least that. But it's an organization to me that should have gone through this offseason and hit the reset button. Move the elder parts that you have for the assets you can get back in return. Get some draft picks for 27. Lean a little bit into the tank for what it is. Clear out your salary cap deal. You get through another year of the DK contract. You can move out from under that after this next offseason, after 2 years if you want to, and really get to a place of resetting things. But this is what the Steelers have done for years now, so I'm not terribly surprised to see them go kind of with the run it back again kind of approach of things. Garth Knight, thank you for the $5 donation, Garth. It's good to see you in the house, brother. I want to keep DK and Rodgers together just because they are great for each other, and McAfee. 3 clowns together makes a Steelers fan. I think it does. One's one left shoe with the clown shoe, the other one's the right clown shoe, and one gets to be the red nose there, Garth, But yeah, that was one where Rodgers is a guy that, worked off his best with receivers that he had that long practice time with, that he had repped out over and over again, those routes, that those guys got into that psychic connection between them of being able to almost like communicate non-verbally. And then you pair him up with a guy in DK that's, really never at the best of times operate necessarily from that manner per se. And then stuff like Rodgers likes to, if he doesn't see separation, to just kind of guy running a 9 route up the sideline, I'm going to throw the back shoulder fade and you need to be ready to be racked to it. And when he's got the psychic connection with the receiver to do that, that works. When you're trying to do that with DK and he's trying to go up the field thinking you're throwing the 9 and then suddenly throw the back shoulder, which is not DK's bread and butter either, it's a mismatch. It's two things that just don't necessarily, go together between them. And strange from the onset as to why the Steelers chose that connection. Even a guy like Cousins, I could maybe understand on going with like him and a DK, and then what you get with those two guys, maybe more than the Rodgers one, but plenty of cuts last year, Garth, of Rodgers, rolling his eyes and dropping his shoulders as he's tried to throw it to DK, and there's a drop in there, or DK went the other way and he thought he was going that way. And you just go, yeah, you could see this coming from a mile away, and it just didn't make any sense. It's not just about having like insight to see it coming. It's one that I think the general average fan would hear and go, DK Metcalf and Rodgers? I don't know. I don't know about that. So like I've talked about, like if Kyler Murray starts in Minnesota, I don't think you're seeing him throw very many balls to Juwan Jennings. Like I don't see those two guys being a good connective point either. It's just there's certain quarterbacks to certain receivers that I don't think you want to necessarily lean into. But it is going to be a circus, Garth. It's going to at least be, I guess, interesting to watch it play out. Maybe they get lightning in a bottle, Maybe it's just crazy enough to work. Ski Nation, thank you for the $5 donation. Ski. Dallas, Chargers, and Bronco games are scare for me. Luckily, 2 are AFC matchups. Dallas and Chargers are to us what we are to the Eagles and Cardinals, laughing out loud. Yeah, indeed. Dallas has had our number quite a bit and does kind of feel like we've been able to get the Chargers here and there since we left the old AFC West, but that they've had our number more often than not since then, to your point, Ski. And I had 4 losses on the schedule. The 4 losses that I did have were the Bronco game, the Charger game, the Ram game, one of the Rams game. And then I thought one of that section of games in there, right? That section of games where you got Dallas and the Eagles in there, that I just felt like one of those two that maybe you lose on that. And maybe it's the Eagle game on the road, Christmas, winter weather kind of stuff at that time. Maybe it's that one and you take care of business with the Cowboys at home. But that's how I got to the 4 losses on the year. So I'm in the same place. Not scared, but the Broncos one makes me worried because I think that's just going to be a tough one. I could really see Seattle just resting guys and just kind of looking at that game as almost like a default bit of a bye week as it could play out, depending on where your health is at as a team going into that. Because you go back and you play in that short with the Broncos, and then you still got to come back to the Chiefs and the Bears and the Cardinals and the Raiders before you're even going to get to the bye week. So you don't even have a bye week turned around to where you're like, we'll charge them up through the Thursday night game, and then we'll just get to the bye week and then we'll rest them there. You don't have that. So that's one where I can just see tactically as much as anything else, you having to set the chess pieces up in a way from McDonald's standpoint and maybe not have quite enough guys to get yourself over the top for that particular game. But that being said, not a lot of bumps in the road on this schedule and a lot of winnable spots, especially with the primetime games, eliminating some of the 10 a.m. structure that you would typically deal with. What we got? 2 10 a.m. games in this one. Not bad at all. Ski Nation with another $2 don't know, bro. Appreciate you for that. Also, did I say screw the Rams? Whinier than the Niners. Oh my gosh, I know. The amount of excuses and just bending over backwards in order to do anything but just acknowledge the fact that you lost. I mean, it's the weirdest behavior. Niner stuff you get because it's like, look, you grew up on all of these Super Bowls and dynasties, and it's like growing up a rich kid. You can't be mad at the guy for having a silver spoon in his mouth and then having that little bit of that aura to him as he tries to walk through life, even if now he's broke and living out of an apartment. But when it comes to the Rams, it's like this one's been one I've continually said that I don't really get. And it does make me kind of like I respect the fan base. I think they've been largely respectful coming to my chat. I think there's some really cool Ram fans that come in here. It's not to paint the whole fan base this way, but I do think that there's a large section of the fan base there that's really leaned into the excuse making business. And that's one where I would just say that, careful when you do that. I don't say that just to say that to be flippant or just to be cheeky. I say that because we know it's true. And the NFL is a funny game. And mentally, it's one that you can twist yourself into knots and things can happen and get you out of sorts. And it's a confidence game. And I just think that they continually are making all these excuses in the world, and they're not looking at any one of the reasons that are really as much true as to why they did lose, why they did fall short. To them, it just feels like, not to all of them again, but just there's a big portion of the fan base there where it is them just, over and over again with the luck and the fluke and as I've said, like we play you 100 times over the course of a NFL season. This NFL season plays out 100 different times. We're the Super Bowl champion 99 times. Like they kind of talk about it like that. And that's the one to me where I go, I don't think you guys got a leg to stand on here, because it's not just merely that we won this division. It's not merely that the division was the toughest division in football last year and maybe the toughest division of the last 20 years in the NFL, legitimately. That both Seahawks, Ram, 49er, and Cardinal fans would make that argument. That not just merely that, but also the fact that we had to win the division literally twice. Not only beating the Rams, but having to beat the 49ers twice in order to have the opportunity to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. Like, it doesn't get more certain. It doesn't get more, hey, we decided this thing true blue. Hey, you had one extra swing at this thing. If you thought luck was on the back of us being in this place in the first place, you got one more swing to show that it wasn't that. And in that final game, we're up 33-18, and it takes a freaking taunting penalty for them to have even a chance to be even somewhat in that game on that third game. We were clearing more a distance away from them by the third time we had played them, not losing distance. And it played out that way through all the first 3 games of the year last year. You barely just lose, you barely just win, a little more comfortably won. But yeah, they're getting a little whiny on that side of it. I appreciate you, Ski. You're the best, bro. You guys are all the best. You guys are just so very kind here with all your support to this channel. And yeah, I hope you guys just know it's very much appreciated. Feed me, thank you for the $2 don't know. Watch the Rams versus Bears, NFC, DR, run the ball. It's working. Yeah, well, that's the thing with the Bears and these offensive coordinators. I think Ben Johnson's got a little bit of this too. I think that there was a little bit of this at the table with him when they played the Rams, which is that he, like McVay, like Andy Reid at times, it's not that these guys aren't brilliant offensive minds. It's not that these guys can't put up points in bunches. It's not that these guys can't put together the best game plans offensively that you will find in the sport. But it is that everybody's got their flaw. Everybody's got their thing that's sort of their Achilles heel. And with these particular guys, you can see throughout their time that Achilles heel has been, I just don't always have the commitment to running the ball. I just kind of do it begrudgingly. I do it just to keep you honest in the passing attack. And with a team like, for instance, the Rams and a lot of these other defenses out there, you're just going into the jaws of the defense when you do that. Rams aren't looking to blitz you. They're looking to drop those guys into coverage. They're going to squeeze those passing windows. They're not going to give you a lot of clean looks. So you got to force them out of that by truly running the ball. You got to force them to pull the guy down into the box. You got to force them to go to the pure base 3-4 defense. And the Bears just... in that game, I thought they dropped a lot of opportunities there to be able to take the Rams down if they had chosen some different tactical approaches to what they were looking to get done. It's a great game plan from the defense. I mean, that was as good as you're going to see against the Rams probably all last year. But I think offensively, Johnson's attack on that day left us all a little bit wanting. Or maybe I shouldn't say that because we got the chance to play the Rams and then prove out. Had the Rams lost that game, then, you think the squawking's bad now. Oh my gosh. Wouldn't stop all off season. If we didn't have to play the Bears in a freaking Arctic winterland, we would have beat you guys. You know it. You guys know it too. I don't know nothing. Garth Knight, thank you for the $5 donation. I wish Rodgers could host Jeopardy with McAfee as his tank top Vanna. I don't know. Did you see the girlfriend of Rodgers? I just got a picture of that. Like, oddly, exactly what I kind of expected, quite frankly. I first saw the picture. I was like, oh, okay, yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking in my mind for an Aaron Rodgers girlfriend. That does sort of kind of fit. But yeah, well, he wanted to be the Jeopardy host, and maybe he goes on and does some other lesser, game show after he retires. Garth pick some lesser one, has a little hippy dippy chick out there turning around whatever they do in their whatever the equivalent is of turning the letters around. Thank you, Garth. Roger, I can't believe he's coming back, man. I mean, that guy's he just has felt checked out for the past 2 years. It must be the money. I mean, he signs a $23 million contract. So he's probably just like, look, I'm getting no sponsorships when I retire. I better get now while the getting's good. That's all I can think of, is that there's something like where it's just, there's a money motivating factor to this that's keeping him going, because it ain't the love of the sport. I'll tell you that. Mick, Brandon, you might want to check in on Mike. His team can't even make a schedule release video without being in last place, and that's with the extra time compared to everyone in the division. It's a give up season for the Cardinals, Mick. They're leaning into tank mode, man. You know what I mean? In every way. Not just partially, even the PR department's leaning into the tank. It's a spiritual thing at this point. Yeah, Mike McCarthy is absolutely the definition of lukewarm hiring. And also, what are you trying to do hire? Like, what are we trying to accomplish? Are you trying to reset a roster? Are you trying to have a guy set a culture? Is Mike McCarthy known for setting a culture? Is Mike McCarthy known for, at this point, building, Super Bowl roster? Yeah, he had success in Green Bay, 20 years ago. But I don't think he's known for any of these things that are what are the things that the Steelers seem to need. Banker says Rodgers not winning a Super Bowl on that team. Only team Rodgers can get the second ring is if he was signed to either the Rams or the Hawks. Yeah, agreed. That's where it's kind of, maybe he's just hoping, Banker, like maybe he's thinking in the back of his mind here, like Seattle has an injury or the Rams have an injury at quarterback with Stafford, that then you could go and you could call the Steelers and they're 3-5 and you could say, hey, we'll throw you bop and then we'll pay the half the season of Rodgers' salary. Send him over here. Maybe there's a little bit of that at play on this as I think about this kind of live. From a Rodgers perspective, he's like hoping that he can maybe get traded if the team's out of it. Puka, does he do anything crazy before the opening game? Is Australia ready for Puka? I think people finally got to Puka and was like, you're costing yourself tens of millions of dollars. What's up, Catalyst? And then just a cup. He's valuable in a multitude of ways, man. Blocking, receiving, efficiency. And, the narrative you hear about Kupp and what you heard of Kupp last year and being washed and being spent and there's a fork in his back and all this is his demise has been heavily overstated. And when you go back and look at the tape and you look at the productivity and you look at the productivity in this offense in particular, Kupp had a really good year last year. In many ways, kind of a bounce back season in some certain respects, even if you can just look outside just base statistical numbers. And there's some reasons to do so, for sure. Chiefs are still definitely vulnerable. Kukai. Offensive line, receiving core, defense up and down. I think at all three levels you can find some issues. Kendrick Brando, who would win a hypothesized LFC West, lesser football conference of Arizona, New York Jets, Cleveland, or Miami? I'd say Arizona. I maintain Arizona. There'd be divisions in football where Arizona very well of last year might have been the second team in the division. If they're in the NFC South, they might push themselves into second place there. If they're AFC East, might be in there as the 2 team. Maybe. Just saying. So I think the Cardinals on that one, man. I guess the Patriots were out there. They wouldn't be better than the Patriots, though. They'd be the third place team in a lot of divisions. They wouldn't be necessarily the fourth place in every division like they were here with ours. They might have been second place even in NFC East. If they're playing in that division instead, they get to play the Commanders and Giants and whatnot on that. So I think the Cardinals still have a lot of work to do, but I think those 3 teams you mentioned, Kendricks, like the Jets are at literally the beginning place. The trades of Gardner and Williams and the guys they've moved around in that way and trying to reset the deck, and Cleveland trying to find the time that they can get to finally getting out of the Watson contract, resetting their whole offensive line. Miami just beginning the rebuild now this offseason, really. They're just more further at the beginning stages of this. Arizona's still in the stages of it, but they're just not in the beginning stages of the rebuild, I would say. Good question. Think about this. There's a world next year where we end up 13 picks in the draft, 3 third-rounders. If we have our front office guy hired as the GM for the Vikings, that's true. That'd be crazy. Crazy awesome. Is there a chance Denver's a dumpster fire come the time we play them? It's possible, but that's a team with a good offensive line, a great defense. They've got a pretty valid number 2 option now with Cortland Sutton. It's kind of like 2 number 2s, but they've always seemingly kind of had like a 2 and then a bunch of 3s and stuff, in some years past. So, they're better there. I think Bo Nix's health is a big factor on this, but I think that Peyton's had a couple of years now to kind of build on this. He's gotten out from under the Russell Wilson contract. He's got it built to his vision. And I'm not the biggest fan of Peyton as far as personality and how he goes about his business. But I've got to say that the man's a really good coach and he understands how to build a program, especially getting the success that he's gotten out of Denver so quickly. So I think that they're still going to be tough to deal with. So to see them get to full dumpster fire phase, that's a hard one for me to see. I think in some ways that would require them to have that defense take a big step back, which is just, I don't know if I can see a way that does happen with all the talent that it does have on it. Riverside, Hawks Nest. Do you know how you do the crossover with the other team content creators before the game? You should get that Pats kid from the roundtable, Colby. That'd be fun. I will try, Herbicide. I was, in fact, trying to get Colby on before the Super Bowl, and he said he was going to do it. And then I kept emailing him throughout the week. And for whatever reason, the East Coast content creators on doing the Behind Enemy Lines collab, like they are very hard to nail down. Guys in the Midwest, guys in the South, guys on the West Coast, all are very like communicative and they're like really responsive and boom, boom, let's get it done. Let's go. But guys on the East Coast sometimes can be really like elusive and hard to like. So I've been able to do a collab with Colby before. He's part of the Roundtable Network. And I'm definitely going to be reaching out to all of the Behind the Enemy Lines guys that I want to touch base with here this off season to get them prepared and see if we can get them kind of locked in for the games. And hopefully with Colby, I can get him on a place. He might also be a little mad at me for the video I put out showing some of his reaction from the game. So I can't guarantee he's not going to give me some help for that. But yeah, I will definitely try Herbicide. He's the guy that I will be reaching out to on the Patriot fan base to try to see if I can get him in here. It's just all about those guys responding to their emails sometimes. Ski Nation, Hawks Nest. It is really trippy seeing the Rams be so childish about the season. Since when did our 2-point conversion make them lose to the Panthers and Falcons? And no one brings that up. Crazy town. Yeah, it's getting hyper fixated on this one specific play of a football season. And I've railed against this whole getting hyper concentrated on any one single play in an NFL game. That's not the way to do it. And it's really the wrong way of looking at a contest to determine about, not only who won and lost by the points, but who kind of deserved to win or lose, or what were the factors that led to the win and loss. And the Rams have done none of that. I think the Rams in certain ways haven't done a lot of that, as you hear McVay still trying to push that rule change through pretty deep into this offseason. But you've heard it from the talk of their players too. I've heard their players talking about this. Like, it isn't just the fans. I've heard plenty of their players. Puka said, like, I think they had Verse was saying it, a little bit like, yeah, we should have had him, but you know what? It was like, look, there's all but saying it. And I kind of don't understand it a little bit. It's an interesting reaction to watch. Like, I understand, like, you have an issue with some of the 2-point conversion. It's not that I don't expect everybody to just kind of clap their hands and be like, well, the NFL knows best. But when you do have the chance to learn in retrospect that the call was correct, that it's the right call, then you should be less angry about it. And like you say, when you have other games like that Panthers game or the Falcons game and other stuff that happened that year that contributed to why you fell short of the number 1 bye, that were part of the reason that contributed to why you had to go on the road in the playoffs, you probably should pay attention to that. But there's this excuse game going on, and it's players, it's coaches, it's fans. And again, I want to say, like, Banker Elpries is in here. He's not like that at all. Very kind to this channel. He's a Rams fan. We've got a couple of the Ram fans that come in here. It's not all of you guys out there that are listening to this. It's not. But I will tell you guys, as you guys know, I do so much interaction with communities and from roundtables, and where I see this, I've seen it permeating the landscape of the Rams fandom this offseason. And it's a dangerous place to be in, to start just making these excuses right and left rather than owning up to why you truly lost. And you truly lost. We were the better team. It's a little bit like I say, Ski Nation, like the special team side of it. I mean, how many Ram fans do you hear talk at all about their special teams this offseason? Huge issue last season. They bitched and moaned about it in year constantly. Almost every week I had to hear Jake talk about it on the roundtable. So then you get into this offseason, and what's your major move you've done to address it? What's the big thing you've done to make sure that that's not going to be a problem ever again, that you've solved this issue? I'm listening. I'm all ears. Oh, that's right. Nothing. So what are the excuses going to be from the Ram fandom then next year when their special teams comes up and bites them again? Gosh, we're just so unlucky with this special teams unit, man. Why is it every year our special teams unit is just so unlucky? It's like, because you got to build a great special teams unit. It's something that you purposely build. You don't fall into. But it is one of the places I've noticed with it. And again, I say, I egg it on. I say, keep that energy. Because that energy will keep you from looking at the things that have allowed us to have some of those little tiny advantages we need to beat how good of a team you are. These two teams are this close, head to head, back and forth. They're going at it here. They're just right neck and neck. If you're going to ignore these extra couple of things that give us just a little bit of juice down the home stretch to break past that finish line, that can be the difference of us getting out there and getting to a Super Bowl and winning it or not, as last season showed. So let history repeat itself once again, I say, Ski. Seattle Rams are scared. They know we are still on the rise, and they are in the decline. Good point. I think there's a bit of that I wonder about being at play here. I gotta say, I've been wondering a little bit about that myself with this. It's like, are this part of the reason that all these excuses is like somewhere in the back of your mind? You're like, we haven't solved them. We aren't even close to solving them. Let's just make excuses. That's easier. Doom says the 2-point conversion got in the Rams' head. That's why they lost the Falcons and the Panthers. It definitely stuck with them, man. And it stuck with them throughout the offseason. Like it was wild to watch it weeks afterwards. And you're right. Weeks afterwards, you could feel it still reverberating on that team as a whole. But to then just see it still reverberating into this offseason to the point that they're trying to create a rule change around it for a situation that will never happen again in an NFL game. It does kind of just show, I mean, that's sort of the definition of being in your head on something, of one play that long, prolonged, that you're sort of obsessed and thinking about it. If only McVay had spent as much time as concentrating on his special teams this offseason, huh? A little late rim shot there. Pumpkin is very cute, Industry Worth. You're right about that. It's good to see you. Kendrick says, what are the 49ers going to do when they inevitably fail to make the Super Bowl? Blow up the team, fire Kyle or Lynch? And what about the Rams? How are they going to re-sign all their players? Well, I think the Rams are in a position right now where they've got 4 extensions that got to be done right now coming up, and we'll see how they kind of navigate this. There is a way, of course, that they could get them all done if they want to bury void money years and bonus money down the line, and the players are amendable to it. They can do that. I do think that they're going to probably try to get cute with it and sign like 3 guys and hopefully make one guy play out the final year of his contract in his rookie year, a la like Apuka. But I think the Rams are going to still continue to be in a place where they're going to be continually aggressive into the future. Whether, Stafford keeps going or not in the future, just with where the roster is and how they got it. Because there are some spots in the roster that are still with young in development and good places and a good offensive line. And, they got some things that they can still work with, but they're going to have to obviously do a little reset. Niners are a little bit more of a bigger reset. Unfortunately, the Niners are in a tougher place too, because there's going to be so much money pushed down the line with the Trent Williams contracts, McCaffrey contracts, the Kittle contract. The Purdy contract starts to kick into full bloom. This is where it's going to get hard with some of these deals to just simply turn things around really quick. And it probably is going to mean that the Niners are going to need to have more of a 2-year process when they finally do get to that point of like, okay, the window's shut. We got to turn this all back around through. And does that mean coaches leave? Does that mean Lynch goes? Probably. That's the way that tends to be the shelf life of this type of stuff. If you are in a place for 10 years and haven't quite gotten through in that way. So whether that includes Shanahan or not, we'll see. Hard to predict on there. The owner really liked Shanahan a lot, Kendricks. And so I don't know if he's as much. I think it's a little bit more of Lynch being in the crosshairs on that one than it is Kyle. But 49ers are in some strange place going in the future because there's so much money that they put on old injured players, and there'll be so much just kind of dead money that they are continually every year having to kind of sustain through this now. That's going to make it hard for them to build those championship roster. It really will. And they maybe still be good or solid or competitive, but championship roster wise, I can't see them building that, as you just aren't going to have the means. It's kind of like this year is it for them, Kendricks. Like this is make or break for sure. The LA excuses. LA lames. Jail says when you have a 38-year-old quarterback, it could go downhill fast at any time. That's the Lambs' reality. I think last year was the best chance they've had in a while. Yeah, I think when you're a guy this age, to your point, we've seen multiple guys like Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers have just an Achilles snap on a drop back. Not guys torquing them and twisting them, but just simply doing a movement they've done 10,000 times over the course of their career in practice and pros, suddenly snaps just randomly. You know, when you're old like that, that's kind of what can happen. And Stafford got through it last year in a very unique way at that age to avoid any kind of injuries really last year, except for his kind of finger at the end, where he still played great. But you got to figure it's going to be hard to do another year of that, especially when there's so much of a draw by McVay. No matter how much he invests into the offensive line, no matter how much money he spends on Kyron Williams, no matter what you're going to then put draft stock into Blake Corum, he always comes back around to wanting to throw the ball at one of the top 5 or 6 highest rates in the NFL. I mean, you got two teams here in Seattle, Joe, and you got two teams here in Seattle and in the Rams who both got a chance to play from ahead a lot and got to be on top of their opponents a lot. And the Seattle Seahawks finish off a season like that at 481 attempts, 29th in the NFL in total amount of attempts. And then if you look over the top of the list, a Rams team that only had one less win than you, who again, playing from similarly ahead a lot, 598 attempts. It just kind of illustrates my point that McVay kind of has this issue at times where he can't help himself as far as really wanting to take advantage of having this great passer. And that you have maybe then from that a little bit of that same thing that we see from Shanahan, where like he does with McCaffrey, you push the button too often. You end up expecting too much for a guy at their spot in this point in time of their career. And I kind of wonder that. I'm sorry. The Illumination Channel Life. The 49ers are a house of cards. The Rams are as well. Just not as many cards have been already pulled. You put it much better than I did there, Illumination. But I would agree that's exactly the way the situation has kind of been set up right now. Doom says, are the Steelers putting butts in seats? That might be all they really care about. Well, the thing that's going on there, and we thought it was a little bit of a problem that was simply in Lumen, but this is a thing that's spread across the NFL and is just everywhere. And that is that stadiums are getting taken over by opposition fans all over the place. And you were hearing even about former Steeler greats that were talking about this happening last year when this never used to occur. So are the butts getting filled? Are the seats? Yeah. And does the interest of a Rodgers, maybe as far as potentiality versus trying to run it out there with a couple of no-name quarterbacks who are going to look bad playing the game and make it harder to get any kind of draw? I mean, maybe that's it. I certainly think, and it's not the way it should be, but there's plenty of teams I think that there's a little bit of a draw by how they go through their off seasons of, can we draw the eyeballs? Can we be just interesting enough that people want to watch? More than it's about, can we become championship driven? Can we become great? It's how do we just make sure that we've got the community's eyes on us and that we're at least just interesting? We've got some stories we can throw them. We've got some storylines they'll like. I think there's some of those teams that are like that. And I think you're right. Steelers are probably a little bit like that kind of team in how they're operating right now. Cardinals are probably a little bit of a team that's operating like that. Let's get Jeremiah Love. It'll be a fun running back. People will come to the stadium and get that. Maybe I'll get to watch Love do something cool today. Yeah, my Cardinals are going to lose, but maybe he'll jump over a guy backwards. That'd be cool. Chris is another big win with Kupp as he stayed healthy last season. Only one missed game, actually. Very true. As I say, I think the Seattle Seahawks health staff does a really great job in managing injuries. And at the forefront of that, I think they've done a great job of managing injuries on older players that have had injury histories, and they're working kind of in conjunction with the coaches on the rotations and the snap counts and keeping things all in a good place so that you can keep these guys healthy through a whole NFL season. and not just a section of. And they do a really good job of that. I think it's purposeful. I don't think it's happening by accident. Go Hawks, Chad. Mick says, hey, Brandon, have you seen the Jair Brown and Dante Whitner drama? Yeah. And, I did. One thing the NFL players don't like is to be told by anybody, and it just goes to show you, the NFL players will often say, why do guys like me have any right to have any criticism of me? You haven't played. You haven't done this, I think the Jair Brown situation shows you that that's really just kind of a shield that players use at times than dealing with the true point of the criticism, right? Like, I see this and that and this from you on tape. Why is that guy even qualified to speak? Well, what about the content of what he spoke? Is there truth to it? Was he lying? Was he incorrect? No, it becomes a point of authority issue, right, Mick? But then that shows you that then you can even have a player in Whitner who had a very long NFL history and career here and, many years in the sport, certainly a much better player than Jair Brown's been up to this point, who's got some valid criticism to throw his way. And Jair Brown, rather, does he own that? Does he? No, it's like instead he's going to pop off on this and go off on it. It's like, Dante's trying to do you favors as much as anything else. But there are those players you can't say nothing to. And maybe this explains a little bit why we haven't seen some of the development in Jair Brown's game, is that development takes owning what you don't do well and trying to grow from that. But again, this just goes to show you that the whole authority thing is just BS when they try to speak it, because they'll say the same thing about a player. They'll be like, well, what'd he do? Okay, well, he did stuff, but that was a long time ago, so he doesn't know how it is now. It's like all these excuses except just dealing with the point of the criticism, which you don't want to talk about. Quarterback has the ankles of a supermodel. Does this mean we get Rio again? Yes, sir. I'm going to get Rio from the Washington Commanders. I had a great time chopping it up. He had a very cool audience too, man. They were very kind. But yeah, we're going to get Rio in for sure. He'll be one of the guys I reach out to for the Commanders. Tower Canadian, no one brings up the Rams had a chance to win the game late, but their kicker missed an easy field goal. Agreed. Yes. It's exactly kind of to my point. There's these other things you could be looking at for why you lost the game. You're not you on this, of course, but they are hyper concentrating on this one factor, this one little narrowed in point of a factor here. This is where everything is at. And it's a call that was right. It's a call that was correct. Yes, it's unusual, but unusual things happen in football games. And you come back to the special teams being a problem. Tired Canadian, they'll bring up special teams to a Ram. Like I've literally had this conversations with Rams fans where I'll bring up to this game and this point, to your point on this, like I'll say, okay, you got this 2-point conversion. What about your guys blowing the punt return touchdown? Like if you just stop him from returning a punt return touchdown there and you make us actually bleed more clock, you probably win the game on that. Especially if we can't get a touchdown, we got to settle for like a field goal attempt or you get the stop there because we're going for it on 4th down. And they go, okay, yeah, we gave that up. That's still just one kick return in the game. Well, then your special teams unit also had a missed field goal as well in that game, which would have had you winning the game if you had made that. What about that? Oh, and again, they just start waving their hand away at it. And you start to go, oh, okay, you're really just making excuses here. You're not trying to understand. And they're not. And maybe there's a human nature thing side of this to it. I haven't really known Ram fans to lean into this direction as far as like, they'll speak about the Eagles the prior year and falling short there. And they'll be like, well, it came down to the line and we just couldn't quite, bang through. We came really close. We had them pushed right up to the brink. We just couldn't get it done. They own it. They came out of that game and they're like, yeah, we hate it. We wish we would have taken down the Eagles. They just kind of had our number that year. We weren't a good matchup for them. Kind of is what it is. But they're not doing the same thing here. And maybe it's because we're in the division, but it's just a whole different tenor that does stand out. And it does make me think, as I say, as I try to relate this back to special teams, it makes me believe that it's kind of in their heads a little bit on this, that plays still kind of residually lingering, the scent of it is still in the air for them. And that it's also that they haven't concentrated on the things that they should have, that probably would have reinforced this team in the proper way to get them back potentially over the top. You got a couple corners and you're kind of like, that's it. That's all we need to do. Even their approach this offseason personnel wise and what they've addressed and how they've looked to add on top of this team as one that spoke from the fact of we should have had it. It's luck that we didn't, And I think that's what you could do with looking at this. If I just walked in and I said, okay, the Rams finished the season, that's their outlook of it. What are the moves you think they would make then after that, if that's what we both acknowledge is going to be their thinking, their mode of thought. Oh, well, they probably won't do a lot of anything in free agency. They'll, maybe just try to make like a one move kind of thing. And here we go. And then, just kind of punt their way through the draft and just try to run it back again the same way. Well, that's what they've done. We'll see. It's a good point though, Tired Canadian. Ski Nation, thank you for the $2 donation, Ski. Where's our favorite Ram fam, Jimmy? Jimmy! What's up? Shout out to Jimmy. Shout out to Jimmy. Appreciate you, Ski. He'll be in here at some point. Banker says, but Brando, we got new coaches. We got a new coach and players need time to learn a new system. I already see it. Oh, you know it, man. Oh, you know it. Yeah, Clay, I was worried about Shaheed. I was worried about Shaheed getting the Rams trading for him last year. And that's one of those places that you can see. And this is where I say everything's so tight between the Rams, the Hawks, and even the 49ers to a degree on this, where everything is just so very close as far as the margin of error, the margin of victory, the margin to be in second place versus first place. It's not that one is diametrically better than the other by so far. It's that these key little moves can be the difference. A trade deadline, if the Rams have been willing to throw a 3rd round pick to supersede our 4th and 5th round pick, maybe that's enough to where we're not willing to offer that anymore. Now you get Shaheed, and beyond Shaheed's impact to the Rams is by what is not there to be drawn upon for the Seahawks. And that gets this, that very probably likely gets the Patriots a Super Bowl win, not simply an appearance, but a victory itself. And it's wild. It's crazy. It makes this much more intensive and just having you on the edge of your seat because there is this such close nature to the way that this stuff's set up. But it's why I hyper concentrate too on these small things of differences, learning your lessons, adding on top of the stack, not just simply saying one move, wipe your hands and call it a day, but continually trying to add more and more and more and more and inch your way ahead of that line over that competition that is right on your heels. The Illumination Channel says the fact that we're in their head is a psychological advantage for us on the field. I agree, man. And you're talking about house money, as I said last year. Everybody on the round table tried to tell me the Hawks win the playoffs, that, well, now the pressure's on the Hawks because you're the number 1 seed. It's like, oh, boys. Nobody thought we were supposed to be here. Vegas had us at 7.5 wins. There is zero amount of pressure on this Seattle Seahawks team. They are playing free and loose, and they could give an F. Like, they're trusting the process and letting it rip. There is no, like, time's winding down. Our quarterback's getting really gray in the beard. I don't know if we're going to get many more runs at this. Oh, it's getting urgent. Oh, this is going to end soon. We better get this now. We better do. Then that drive starts to hit on those teams, right? And we don't have that. That's not where we're at. And I happen to wonder if that's going to be a part of the Rams walking in this year. Is you can feel the intensity in McVay. Didn't he feel at times from you guys on the sideline? Like, dude, time to half the roid medication down, brother. You know what I mean? Maybe not the Toradol and the TRT. You know what I'm saying? Maybe not both, Sean. You know? I mean, he was a live wire on that sideline last year. We were like, buddy, chill out. I mean, there's into the game. There's like, I thought he was going to have a heart attack over there. But maybe so, man. Maybe so. Senior, Tiny Baby Goats. Welcome back as a member of the channel. I know you've been so before on that. And again, we're going to get a notification up to the community post here for you guys that are members of the channel. We'll be doing a call-in show shortly for you guys. So please do keep on the lookout for that. Banker says the fact that most fans are still crying about the 2-point and not talking enough about special teams and livid about Simpson. I don't know, Brando. Like I said, man, you're a smart Ram fan, and I'm never going to try to paint any Ram fans or any, not Ram, even 49er fans, just, one broad brush. It's so unfair and it's so stupid because there are smart fans and stupid fans in every fan base, and as I was saying to kind of like the Eagle reference on this, Banker, I didn't sense it from the Eagle game, the year prior, that you guys played, where it was like, it was a good fight. Things came down the line. We couldn't stop the run on them. We had the last, chance to, and it was totally just kind of just owning the loss and moving on. And then with this one, I think that there's just so much of that section. And again, I've heard it from Ram players themselves at times in the interviews I've heard from them this offseason, and McVay pushing it with the rule change. And you just go, ooh, this just, I'm biased. I am totally biased in the situation, but it would be something that if it was my team on this, and like you mentioned at the end of this, is then you have that kind of just hanging there this offseason, and then the Simpson and then the draft. Simpson and the draft. Like Max Clare might be a good player, Banker, but I can't think of any NFL team in recent history that can run 2 H-back tight ends on the field at one time. Let me say this again, and I know you know this, but I say this again. Like you got your first round pick out the door. He ain't playing this year unless your quarterback gets injured. Your second round pick, Max Clare, the tight end, is an H-back tight end. So I can look at any NFL given Sunday, and I can look at almost any NFL given team on an NFL given Sunday, and I'm going to find an NFL team that's going to rock 2 inline tight ends at once on the field at the same time. I will not see any team that will be rocking 2 H-back tight ends on the field at the same time. Now, maybe the Rams are brilliant, and maybe they're ahead of the curve on this one, and maybe they're going to be a trendsetter with this, and that this is the new hotness. Maybe. I do find myself a little bit feeling like, though, Banker, we come back to that getting cute thing, or the not paying attention to the things you should be paying attention to, or the, hey, if our first and second round pick have more impact next year on the 26 roster rather than this H-back tight end who's got to sit on the bench because we put a second round pick on Ferguson on an H-back the prior year who's going to play ahead of him. And likewise with Simpson, as I say in that game of us being neck and neck, is that enough to push you guys that couple inches ahead of us at that point? And that's really where I see it is that neck and neck, and that those could be enough to get you up over that finish line. And that we saw last year. I'm not like trying to sort of sell something that has not occurred. This literal thing happened last year. I mentioned the Rashid Shaheed trade, but there's other representations we can find of it between our two teams being so close together. And the 2 best teams in the NFL, which is just the extra cool part about it. By far the 2 best teams in the NFL. So we'll see. And it may be that I'm looking at it wrong with it too with it. And Banker, I'm glad to hear you're in alignment with me on this as far as, your kind of view of it too, where it's like, maybe we'll see that they're just that brilliant. Maybe the Rams front office is just that smart. Maybe that they're so far ahead of the curve and they're so stacked as a roster and they're so good as a team that they can stack H-backs too deep and they can go for their quarterback of the future while they're in the middle of their Super Bowl run. Maybe they're just that good. But boy, it feels like on the surface of it, doesn't it? Like we're going to fall an inch short and I'm going to be looking at my first and second round pick saying I could have gotten 2 inches if you had gotten anything else but those things instead. I could have gotten 2 for the one I lost. That's the part to me where if I had a hankering of a feeling of like, there feels like something to this particular thing in itself for the Rams this upcoming season, that would be it. That would be the thing for me. It's like, you're going to look back on it, I think, and say that to yourselves. And I know you're already saying it now, and I know there's a lot of other Ram fans that are saying it too. But not everybody with it. C-Town says, Ty Simpson's upside's Purdy. That's being generous. Yeah, I think it's kind of Purdy without the thing too, is that it's Purdy without the 10-yard split. Like Purdy's a 1-5-2 10-yard split. So to put that in context, Brock Purdy has Jahmyr Gibbs' 10-yard split. If you want to think about like quickness. So I'm in the pocket. I got the ball. I can now call upon Jahmyr Gibbs' 10-yard split. That quickness, right? 40 speed, 10-yard split is quickness. I can call upon that quickness to get away from a defender who's breathing down the back of my neck. Ty Simpson doesn't have that 10-yard split. He's going to be more of like a 1-6-5 guy. So he's got the Purdy size, but not the Purdy getaway. And you need the Purdy getaway is kind of a big part of his game, isn't it? Yeah, I agree. Tired Canadian, I hope the Rams sign Puka to a huge contract and he goes totally nuts like Antonio Brown. He's kind of speed running that. He's speed running that archetype of receiver that we've seen before in this manner, right, Canadian? And we'll see. It seems like he did go to rehab and maybe get some things cleaned up at that point. It's a shame, going through the offseason he had, because you just do wonder from his perspective and his people's perspective that if he'd just been, working and preparing for this upcoming season, that there'd be no doubt that he gets the extension done. And we're talking about an extension that will make him the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL, but that he might have actually cost him the ability to get the extension done right now because of the offseason that he's had. We'll see. We'll see. But it's definitely been a little bit of a strange one with Puka Nacua. Ski Nation, maybe he'll jump over a guy backwards, laugh my ass off. That sounds like a real conversation in the Cardinals front office. I mean, it just is. And Mike admitted to it on the roundtable a couple weeks ago, and it just kind of put me silent. He's like, and yeah, maybe where they're trying to get some eyeballs on. I'm like, oh, okay. We're just acknowledging it now that we're making moves for viewership. You can't serve two masters, man. You can't say, hey, we want to build a championship roster, and how do we maximize viewership? Build a championship roster, and the viewership will come with it. Teams that don't believe they can build a championship roster concentrate on maximizing viewership. Corey says, just keep doubting us. Please keep doing it. Amen, man. Amen. Oiler Titan says, I don't see Love as a one-trick pony. I see him as a better version of Gale Sayers, Eric Dickerson, Tony Dorsett. All three were mad fumblers. Love has never fumbled. Yeah, he's a good player. I mean, you're putting him in some special territory there. Giving him basically kind of those guys are all Hall of Famers. And some of the best backs, if not the best backs of their era. Dickerson has certainly the argument to be made that he's the best back of the 80s. If it's not, you want to give Barry Sanders the nod there. That's another one you can. But I mean, him, Peyton, and Dickerson are the three. So I think Love has got some good upper end ability. He does. I think that the third overall pick part of this Oiler Titan does draw a little bit of this as far as like if this is a typical year and Love's now more picked into like the 20s. Or 15, 16, because you have actually true blue chip talent in other places as far as other positions go. He's not looked at as with this, I think, upside that, and you're not the only one stating it, I'll say. There's other people that see this high upside. I like him as a player, but I think that there is a little bit of that missing Hall of Fame type upside to him. I think he's got a chance to be a really good back in this league and to put up well over 1,000 yards and all that and to be useful as the backfield as well. But I don't know if I saw necessarily the same kind of talent that you saw of those guys in their generation where they were just completely different. They just moved different from other guys on the field. He's good though. The Illumination Channel Live. The Rams have their best shot to win last year. They may not get another one because they are old in a few places where they will need some injury luck. As for the 49ers, they will have jumped the shark. Amen. Amen. Banker Brando should just play the Rodney Coleman hit versus the Saints. I got that somewhere. I might have that somewhere. I got a whole Rams file on calls that have gone the Rams' favor. I got a few. I got a file I'm working on. Where is that thing? I can't find it. Now I can't find it though. It's on random. Yeah, thought I had it, but I don't. I should have that one on Call Banker. Telios, have you seen the YouTube Niner substation injury excuse video yet? I think I've seen the one you're talking about. And the substation thing is just, it's going to be wild that this continues to play out because it is kind of in their players' minds a little bit here. And it doesn't sound like the ownership's going to do anything about it. Kelly says, Niner fans really out here blaming the EMF radiation, substations, and hormone disruption for why they can't stay healthy instead of admitting the Seahawks just beat them. We're getting a short step away from like the Cardinals telling us that it's the clockwork elves of the DMT world that are keeping them from beating the Seahawks, that the elves are working in the Seahawks' favor. I mean, how far excuse-wise are we at this point from this, Telius, right? Like, we got 2-point conversions that are the right calls. We've got substations. I'm just waiting for the elf excuse to come into play here at some point. It's the only thing that's left. Garth Knight, thank you for the $5 donation, brother. Appreciate you. Ski Nation, is Jimmy yelled out like Brad Wesley from Roadhouse? Wesley! Wesley! For sure, man. Hey, I can at least appreciate if Niner Ram fans come in and trash talk, but they're dropping donos on every trash talk that they drop. It's hard to get mad at that, man. You know what I mean? I can appreciate it. I can appreciate the hustle. Thank you, Garth. Oh, Roadhouse classic. The original, by the way. Vrabel not likely to have a job by the beginning of the season. We'll see. It's definitely gotten dark, this situation. Tired Canadians, is it true the Seahawks are one bad hit away from Drew Lock administration taking over? Yikes. Doodles. Indeed. You'd be the first guy off the bench again this year. Good news is that your team's going to run the ball heavy. You're not going to need as much from a backup quarterback coming in, but the best bets with Sam out there rocking it, that's for sure. Levon, hello, Brandon. Is Bud Clark more suited for the cornerback 3 spot now more than Julian Neal? I think he's more polished in replacing Woolen than Neal is. What do you think? I don't think that Bud Clark is an outside corner. So when you talk about cornerback 3, of course, it's been traditionally that we would refer to that as sort of the slot corner. But by cornerback 3, what you're talking about is really the third outside cornerback on the roster. Who's that first guy coming off the bench to fill in for Witherspoon or Jobe? And I do believe that it will be Neal. Bud Clark is a guy that can be a slot corner, and he can work really well there. But I think if you got him out there on the outside, that he'd be ill-equipped to be able to handle outside corner duties. He's a safety or a slot corner. I expect Neal to ascend and to surpass both Igbenogany and Pritchett by the start of the season. C-Town, crazy question. Who wins this Super Bowl? 2014 Seahawks or the 2023 Seahawks? 26 Seahawks. Well, according to DVOA, the 2026 Seahawks were better, essentially, that we're rocking out there. So that'd be a hell of a game, I'll tell you that. That'd be a hell of a fight. Probably really about whether you can get open deep or not on the defense at that point. But probably the 26 Seahawks. Just more maybe fully complete team in how they can beat you in just a little bit more of a variety of ways. But both pretty close. I think what the DVOA had like C-Town, like Seahawks all-time 12th team, I think. And the 14 team was like 16, 17, something like that. Says, I don't see us losing the Chargers or the Eagles. I can definitely see the pathway to us beating them. And with the Chargers, you never know what you're going to get with them. Eagles are going to be down A.J. Brown. And we don't know where really their offense is going to be at by that point, as it seems like it's in a real kind of shuffle game, and that offensive line's getting a little bit older and key parts and pieces. So it's not one where I expect us to be heavy underdogs in either of them, especially we're going to be in the Charger game, we're going to be favored for sure. Ski Nation Hawks Nest. Yeah, my Ram slander is mostly for the content creators and national talk. The Ram fans in here are pretty cool. It just stands out that when the Hawks suck, we self-reflect and try to fix it. Yeah, I agree. I don't think that we try to make excuses or any of that. And certainly this is represented by the tough conversations that we had to have regarding Coach Carroll and Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf and Geno Smith and Tyler Lockett. Right? Like where we talk about, is this best for this guy to be here? We got to get something else there. Yeah, I agree. I want to echo that. I'm complaining a little bit about some of the Ram people that I've heard out online, but I can't say that as we've seen with Banker Elprez here today. And every time he comes in here, and a variety of other Ram fans who come in here, super respectful, just want to talk shop, want to discuss football, want to turn over matchups and what these organizations are both doing to try to make themselves, to get to that spot to winning next year and being great. But there is that little bit of the national excuse out there. There's a little bit of the player stuff out there. And again, it's even from the coach on this one out there a little bit. I wouldn't paint it as this super huge draw, big broad brush of all Ram fans are doing this, but it's just something that you've heard a lot of. And it's been hard to understand from a Hawk perspective on this, like you say, because I think there is a little more, I agree with you, a little more self-reflection that goes on with us when we're losing as to trying to what are the tangible things we need to do to fix this? And those tangible things lie inside ourselves, within what we can control. We're not going to base those on something that's outside of our control, that some random thing happened and we're going to get, no. What is we can control, that we can get better at, that we can fix, that we can improve? And I think there's a little bit of a difference on this one. Kendrick says, I think Mike gets under McVay's skin, but McVay tries to play it cool. I just think McVay has a fragile ego, and Michael McDonald just crushed it without even trying or meaning to. Yeah, I agree. I think that there's a little bit of the McVay's got that hyper energy thing where, I'm going to play mind games. I'm going to do all this stuff. And that, Mike McDonald's kind of a great white shark, like he's just going through the waters, like moving, and he's not really hearing what you're saying. It's kind of like it just sort of bounces off of him in a way that I think other coaches like. I think McVay can sometimes get to Shanahan a little bit. I think he can sometimes push some of Shanahan's buttons. And so I agree. I think there's just Mike's way and how he goes about his business is one that McVay kind of struggles to find the cracks that he can kind of work around with that a bit. I'm sure he's trying, but it's interesting to watch, and it's going to be fun to watch these guys go head to head for years to come. Yeah, Purdy can be a mini, like you said, mini Mouse Houdini at times. It's a big part of his game that it cannot be understated with Purdy, is that escapability aspect gets him out of trouble a lot in the extended of plays. I mean, what he had the game we played him, I think that he averaged over 4 seconds in that second game that we played against the Niners. It was the second, or it was maybe the playoff game, but I believe he had like average 4 seconds on his time to throw, and 3 seconds on your time to throw will lead the league in the NFL in a given season. Like any quarterback over 3 seconds, you're leading the league. So 4 seconds in that game, and that's partly because he can just run around and do some of the Russ-like stuff that Russ could do in his prime. Yeah, C-Town, it would be fun to watch those two teams go at each other like that. Wonder if I could figure out how to make that happen in Madden. I do think Tired Canadian touches on it, that the game has advanced so far that there's some of this when it comes to matching up like the Hawks offense, defense, and that offense back then versus what you're doing now. It's part of like how the game just continues to always move forward. It'd be tough for prior generations to play because of how many just schematic things you do differently that are so difficult for those old defenses and offenses. Nusky touches on this well with a $2 donation. So the Seahawks are chasing edges. Rams are chasing refs.
Enough said.
He hits on it here, where it's you play the excuse game, and that's the wrong game to play. And it ain't just football; it's anything in life. Excuses are easy to lean into. Excuses can sometimes be valid, but you certainly don't want to be choosing to chase excuses when they are invalid. It's just not good to do naturally, but certainly not when the excuses doesn't hold any weight, any water. And these acronyms or these things that the Seahawks talk about when they say, chasing edges, through it, not around it. These are things that are meant to be guiding lights of the organization. And they're guiding lights for a reason, because these excuses and the refs and another excuse here and the injury this and that, it comes back to the "we do not care" phrase of things. And that this is how Mike is guiding his culture. This is how he's building his culture to create in his players that don't get caught up on stuff. Don't let this thing catch you up and then you're held up on it and it's keeping you from then progressing forward. Flush it, spin it back, get on to the next thing. Keep hitting it. Keep coming at it. Don't care. Keep it going through. Just let it go. Go. And that's a mentality. And it's a mentality that is real purposeful in how he pushes this out. It's part of the points with Mike where I call him a 5-tool coach, like you would a baseball player, a 5-tool baseball player that's so rare. He's like a 5-tool coach. He can be the schematic guy. He can be the motivator. He can be the disciplinarian. And he can also be the culture builder. And that's what this type of stuff is. And it's why he's had so much success so very young in his coaching career as such a very young head coach, is because he's been able to capture this somehow or another, be it gleaming it off the Harbaugh brothers, naturally maybe just having it. I don't know. And McVay's got this stuff too, by the way. I don't want to take McVay from having it, but you do wonder if maybe there's a little bit of like you lose your way sometimes organizationally, and you have those years where you lose your way and get caught up on the wrong things. It happens to the best of us. Certainly happened to us under the old Legion of Boom years as stuff was kind of winding down. Kendrick says, bro, the DMT Elvis Kyler, he's gone now. Kendrick Rams are chasing dragons and lines of cocaine. Derek Canadian says 49ers are chasing players from old folks' home. Garth, Ski Nation's loving your reference there, buddy. Yeah, no more Keebler Elf. Yeah, I'm with Brian on this. Bud Clark's going to be Eamon when Eamon isn't there. He will be the fourth cornerback on the field in dime. So I think that if you are in dime, you're essentially rocking two slots on the field at once. Eamon one slot, Bud Clark's the other slot, and then you have two outside corners. So I think he's out there in those moments. But as the third corner, I do think it is going to be Neil. Igbenogany won't even make the roster. I know, and I had to learn to say his name too, which is the annoying part of that. Banker says, Brando, I'm looking forward to seeing Stetson play the entire preseason and Simpson handing out Gatorade cups. That'd be a very McVay thing to do. We just believe right now in a lot of what Stenson's doing, and we just want to see him out there. He needs to play. He's off the bottle now. He's not drinking anymore. He's not a drunk, so let's see what he can do sober. I could see it. LeBron Bud Clark is the best ball hawk safety the Hawks have had since Earl. Quandre was pretty good with that stuff. I mean, if you look at the Quandre Earl stats as far as like turnovers per game, those guys were pretty close to each other. Earl was obviously better. But both were pretty good at it. But I agree. He's kind of on that level where he does have that innate ability to be a guy that's going to find his way around the ball. If this guy plays a lot of football, whatever he gives you as a tackler, whatever he gives you as a PFF rated player, this guy plays a lot of football in a lot of games for you. He's going to get you a handful of picks throughout the course of the year. He's instinctively kind of built that way. New Blacks, McVay wouldn't even be a Super Bowl winning coach without Stafford. He failed with his own quarterback in Goff. Good argument to be made for that, New Blacks. And once Stafford moves on, it's going to be very interesting to see, what McVay is able to do with that quarterback position, because it's a heavy driving force of that team. I mean, this is what moved their success last season in so many ways. Not that it was the only thing, but it was at the forefront of it. You have a pretty solid defense. Still, it's him throwing the ball. Yeah, got a solid running game. Still, it's him throwing the ball. Yeah, good offensive line. Still, it's Stafford and what he's doing throwing the ball that's going to dictate and determine whether you're going to be successful or not. And that's hard to always go and find that guy. Stafford's been, especially as he's almost kind of raised his level of play since coming to the Rams with McVay. And McVay's been a part of that too. I want to give McVay some credit here, is that he certainly has helped in maximizing Stafford out to the ultimate as well. But it's a valid question to say, especially when you're looking at a guy like Simpson, who just is not the same kind of physical talent in any way, shape, or form that Stafford was. I mean, Stafford was a clear number one overall pick coming out for what he could do as far as slinging it goes. Down, I want to see Knight rush the quarterback more. Remember those two hits that forced the two fumbles for touchdowns at Lawrence against the Cardinals? It'd be cool to see, man. Boys, he didn't get a lot of chances to fill in last year, but when Knight was out there, technically was your highest rated linebacker, off-ball linebacker on the team. And boy, those two strip sack fumbles in that game coming on a blitz, so cool. It's just a first world problem when you have so many guys that you feel good about playing on the field, but you only have so many spots on the field to play them. Who comes off? Tires is technically McVay inherited Goff. Yes, he did. That's true. Much like he's inherited Simpson. I'm a little late with my rim shots today. That's what she said. King Bomber, man, I remember when people were defending Pete Carroll and saying firing him was a bad idea. I remember. Pepperidge Farms remembers. Yeah, I don't like the Eagles head coach either. He's kind of, I'm working on my McVay impression. It's coming along. You just got to smoke a pack of cigarettes and then you're good to go. Young Guns, did part 2 of Kubiak ever get released? It did last week, Young Guns. So take a look over on my feed and you should be able to see that. If you guys do get a chance, I know I'm heavily bumping this up, but I really want you guys to get a chance and look. It's got like well over a 99% like ratio on the channel right now. So you guys are loving it. It's as much about just trying to get the eyeballs on the video itself, because not as many people have been able to watch it with off-season content. People are kind of drifted away. So if you get a chance, the Kubiak series is live right now. Today, before I was going live, Young Guns, I'm working on part 3 right now. I think what I'm going to do is film part 3, 4, and 5 all together back to back, and then just over the course of like a 5-day span, kind of release all of them to you guys. And that way, as I get them kind of finished up and kind of put them together. But part 2 is now out. It's a good, nice, long 15-minute episode of the year of Kubiak. Just looking at kind of the incredible, it's kind of a comedic look. It's not really a documentary style. It's more of kind of funny stuff, using the green screen and just trying to kind of both have fun with it, do something different here on the channel, but also do a little bit of a look at last season and kind of the pathway, the kind of the cool pathway McVay took to go from being fired as an offensive coordinator by the New Orleans Saints to being hired as the Raiders head coach. We've had an amazing run with head coaches. We have. A big part of it, it's the ownership. And when you have ownership that's committed to truly building a winner and not just saying that they're committed to building a winner, but that you're feeling it in every fiber of their being, in their practice, then you're going to have teams that are going to beat the bushes and do everything they can to try to find the best head coach they possibly can. And if you do that, you can land a great one. But you got to have a committed process to really going out there and exhaustively searching. And that's what they've done on all of these last 3 ones. Not as much the Carroll one, because that became one where he became available. And so you just sort of jumped to strike when the iron, when he finally became available for the right spot being your team. And then he was going to have the right landing zone. And so you kind of jumped on that one quickly, but certainly was exhausted with McDonald and with Holmgren, similar, I guess, a little bit to Carroll there, where you just had a chance with him coming out of contract with Green Bay to go. But that's how it goes, man. You have a great ownership. They'll find great coaches, but they've had a great last 3 hits have been fantastic, man. You might have had the last 3. I think Holmgren eventually does become a Hall of Famer. Like, he eventually does get in, and it'll be pretty crazy that you might eventually come to find the last 3 head coaches of your Seattle Seahawks are all 3 NFL Hall of Fame head coaches. To your point, that'd be pretty crazy. ZZ, Matthew Stafford specifically requested a trade to the Los Angeles Rams in 2021 because he wanted to play in McVay's innovative offensive scheme. True enough. Great spot for him. Great landing spot for McVay. Perfect quarterback for McVay. It's part of what makes me so wonder about the Simpson thing is I would think that McVay would be searching out for the next quarterback, a guy that would be a reasonable comparative player to Stafford in some ways. A guy that's a true tilt the field type of talent. I would think you wouldn't be trying to get by with sort of like, a little less size, less arm strength, not really much, average mobility. I think you'd be kind of like going, no, I've already been down that road. I don't want to do that again. Thank you, William. It says it's well worth the watch. Both of them are. Appreciate you for that, man. I love putting them together. I want to do a lot of this for the future of the channel too, which is trying to, it won't have to necessarily be the big series like this is, where this is going to be a 5-part series, like an hour worth of stuff when I'm all said and done. But in the future, I'd like to do some more of this stuff if you guys like it. So it's kind of one of the reasons I want you guys to check it out too, is you guys checking it out lets me know that this is something you guys would be interested in going into the future here, because I love doing the live streams, but I'm always looking for ways I can kind of diversify with the channel with you guys and give you some different ways of kind of doing content that could be fun. So having a lot of fun putting together. I got the script all done, got all of the assets. It's now just about filming it and cutting it up and putting it all together. And we should have, I'm going to spend a couple weeks just hammering it out and have the last 3 episodes here for you guys. Probably right about the end of the month, and just get them all released kind of back to back, so you guys don't have to wait. Tired Canadian, I think Kubiak's going to be a good head coach. Hopefully they give him the time there. That's what the Raiders need to do, man. They've been spinning through too many head coaches, and there's got to come a time where you recognize that just simply continually spinning through this and hoping to just land on a magical coach is not the way. give a guy a chance, allow him an opportunity to go through some ups and downs, allow him an opportunity to truly get his, his vision in place. And this stuff can sometimes take a little bit of time, especially if you're a team like the Raiders that's not exactly set up for success. And so I think they're going to do that. I think the Raiders are kind of finally realizing that at this point, and he might just be the right guy to get it done. Clint Kubrick was a good director. He was a good director. I haven't had a chance to check out the Netflix fights yet, Banker. I mean, I was going to turn it on and check it out, but then I saw the Rousey one was done in 15 seconds. And I was like, all right, maybe not, maybe not. Pistons are getting blown out though. Yeesh. Brando would have to do Goke to get a really good McVay. Mays, I used to hate the Raiders, but in a weird way, I think I'd like to see them good again. Give Denver and the Chiefs some trouble. Yeah, I mean, you start to get to place to some of these fan bases where you feel bad for them. We have this success, and I sometimes think about, how great it is to have this success and, 4 Super Bowl appearances in 20 years. And, as I was just speaking about, 3 potential Hall of Fame coaches stacked up one after another. And you also didn't think about those fans that are just kind of sitting there just going through year after year, decade after decade of no hope. And I've got a few Raider fans. I got a restaurant I go to, I get to-go orders, and a guy's a Raider fan out here, and talking to him, and your heart goes out to them after so many years because they are a dedicated fan base. They love their team. They're not fair weather fans or bandwagoners. But boy, they've had to wait for a while. And we'll see if now finally they get that opportunity. Tough part is that division isn't at its easiest place. You got everybody's that's kind of on their P's and Q's and trying to do everything they can. And that doesn't set itself well up for the Raiders right now. But maybe if they take a patient approach and try to do this right, they can get there. I did forget Jim Mora. I totally spaced out Jim Mora. He did break the Hall of Fame seal on that one, didn't he? The Hall of Fame daisy chain that we had going. I'd force myself to forget Daniel. Richard says, Chargers win the AFC West. Darth Vader is back. We can hate him again. That's okay. That's okay if Darth Vader's back. We've got something to deal with Darth Vader.
The power of the dark side.
We got the power of the dark side. Who's Darth Vader? I think he means Harbaugh. If I may be so bold. Chris says, would have thought McVay could have temporarily retired after the next season if Stafford does well, but he signed that new deal in February. Kind of doesn't prevent him from retiring still at any point in time, Chris. Not that I'm predicting he will, but, with coaches' contracts like that, you can just say, okay, I'm good, I'm done, I'm retiring, and they don't pay out any more of the contract, and then he just goes to the booth and gets paid the same contract to be up in the booth. So it can kind of be in any year that he wants to do that. But I don't get any impression. I think that he was thinking about it a few years ago. I think he's kind of gotten in place now where he seems to have gotten sort of fully back in love with football in the way that he wants to do this long term. And the quarterback position is one they're going to have to kind of figure out here at some point. And it's going to be a bit of, maybe Simpson's the guy, but that's going to be the interesting part of this. But they do have a roster that's going to be pretty well put together around that to allow him, even if Stafford moves on, to have some success. Banker, Brando, what comes first? Raiders find their coach or Browns find their quarterback? Well, I'm hopeful for Kubiak. I do wonder a little bit with Kubiak, Banker, if this is not a little bit early for him. I think he could have used another year to bake in the oven. And he's going to a Raiders team that just is one that it's very hard to have success there, especially in Vegas. You imagine 21-year-old kid living in Vegas, and saying, don't have any distractions. Just be all about ball. Good luck. The Browns find their quarterback because the Browns are going to be bad again this year. And next year's draft is going to finally be a good draft. And they can finally get out from under the Watson contract and be in a position to actually take a QB where they're being selected at the top of the draft. So I think that's going to happen first. I think Kubiak's just a little bit, maybe not quite ready enough to take on the task at hand with this. There's a reason I think they went to Carroll last year, for instance, the Raiders understanding we have to get a guy that's been around the block and that just can really overcome what's going to be a difficult job to get done versus first-time head coach learning his way also within that environment. I think that's just hard to see that as being a successful place for a guy. But the Browns are in a really ready-made position to finally go get their guy. Next year's draft is going to have a good collection of guys in the first round, I would think. They got to develop. It's got to happen. But I would think that they're going to have to pick from. Let me see my balcony's good now, big. Thank God. I'm all worried out there. I thought the tree was going to fall on you today. Glad to hear they got out there fast. How about the city getting out there quick on that? Let's go. Tired? Yeah, I think that's probably the way it goes. Cousins start the season. Mendoza will be in there by 60 to 70% of the way through the season. They'll put him out there. Good job saving your balcony. Davis may want to see Mendoza sooner or later. I mean, he may. And if he's doing that, that's, again, going to be part of what bodes not well for that organization long term. Because Mendoza would be best suited to just sit for this season, as much to protect him from the shelling and shellacking that he would have to undergo starting out there on a weekly basis for that Raider team. Let Cousins take that beating, you know? I have a friend who's a Raiders fan. Yeah, your heart goes out to him, man. I mean, it's been since the early 80s that they've won a Super Bowl. That's a long wait. They're not quite to the Buffalo Bill territory of things, right? Or the Bengal territory necessarily, but it ain't far either. You're in the vicinity. LeBron B, do you see Andre Fuller pushing out Pritchett? Yeah, I mean, I think Pritchett's got a really golden opportunity here to have a couple of years to develop ahead of these guys, to be able to edge them out, to be able to edge specifically a Fuller out. But the thing that Fuller and Neal bring that are very, very much at the forefront of their game that is not a Pritchett's game and not an Igbenogany's game is tackling. And it's not just tackling as far as like, can you wrap your hands around the guy and bring him down? It's your in-play awareness to where the ball is. It's getting off of blocks. It's then breaking down and making the proper tackle and not being a deficiency there. Like with Pritchett and Igbenogany, those guys can cover and they can mirror guys in coverage and they can drape and they can occasionally make a play on the ball. Like there's not a lot that they're going to leave you wanting as far as coverage goes. They can play man, play zone. They've got fluidity with that. But the tackling is a problem, unfortunately, with those guys. And it has been with Pritchett going back to Auburn. And it is those three factors that all go together. And with Fuller, he's got those three factors taken care of. So, you know, I do think Fuller probably eventually gets transitioned to safety when it's all said and done, LeBron. But if he's good enough to hold up a corner, his tackling is going to be so much supremely better than Pritchett that even if he's neck and neck with Pritchett or just a little bit less than Pritchett as a cover man, the team could say, well, you're going to win out on this because, you know, we don't see Pritchett coming forward as this tackler. All he's going to bring us is this coverage stuff, and we need you to be able to tackle. Like the way we run nickel and how many corners we have on the field at any one time, we need guys that are going to tackle out there. We can't have guys that are going to be, you know, no-shows on plays when it comes to that. But Pritchett did come forward last year, I thought. I don't know if I saw necessarily the tackling there, but certainly the coverage was great. He made that remarkable play in the back of the end zone, the one game where he had a lot of reps, and he was able to like knock the ball away late and prevent a touchdown. But that's the part where I'm going to be very much in training camp and through preseason watching very closely to see where those guys are at as far as that tackling goes. And, you know, Pritchett's to overcome this might have to be supremely great in coverage to really be able to get his footing firm. So hard to predict on this one. Could be Fuller going to safety. Could be Pritchett's come forward a little bit in his game, but I think Fuller is definitely going to be pushing him. Kevin, thank you for reminding me. Please hit that like button if you get a chance for me, please, folks. It does help this channel grow and show. It gets me out in the algorithm for people this offseason looking for content. Very much appreciated. Terry Canadian, poor Mora. We hardly knew you. Boy, in and out, too. Yeah, that was a quick one. He would have lasted if Carroll hadn't have been. If Carroll wasn't available, Mora probably gets a chance to coach another couple of seasons, but at least one more year. But when Carroll became available, it was like, had to do it. Mays says, my favorite fans outside of Seahawks are the Viking fans. They're always funny and always assume something terrible will happen and then apologize for it. It's another long, struggling fan base, man. Another one out there that's been through it. Your heart goes out to them a little bit. Kevin says McVay will be insufferable on Amazon Prime. Yeah, I don't know about him necessarily being a grade A color commentary guy for sure, and that voice is going to be a tough one to, you know. He just got to get in there and turn it out. And when he doesn't turn it out, he's going to come back around and push down to the weak side. And the weak side block's going to come down there and give him right. And you get him right. And holy shit. Oh, turn down the volume, please. We'll see how with thoughts change with Simpsons running his offense. I'd love being a coach too with an MVP Super Bowl quarterback leading my offense. Yeah, you got to figure out the O-line before Mendoza starts. Otherwise, you're just setting him up to get just completely battered. And why? What's the point of that? A guy's not going to learn in that environment. He's going to develop bad habits in that environment. You know, there's no point to it. And you got your quarterback, protect him. He's your most important asset moving into the future. Protect that asset. And most quarterbacks will tell you that they benefit from sitting that first year. Let him sit. Let him learn how to be a pro. Let him learn this offense. Let him master this offense. Come back around next year, and then you can start throwing him to the wolves. 2013, Pete Carroll finally beat the Niners. The Death Star destroyed. Vader last seen spinning in space. The decline happened like last year's thumping 41-6. Harbaugh made an unlikable villain. True enough. True enough. Well said. Chris, imagine listening to McVay and Mahomes' commentary. I'd stab my ears. They'd have to put those guys through a filter, you know? They got to put those guys through like a honey filter. You couldn't take it. It'd be two different nails on a chalkboard at one time. Just no, can't do it. May says, who would you rather see doing TV, McVay or Wilson? Well, that's where I think Wilson could be good at this. So I think Wilson has had a couple of moments. I've seen him on Manning telecast where he's come out and he's been pretty good. Like he's kind of a natural at it a little bit, I would say. And he's got a good voice for it, you know, that I think would work well. Yeah, I'd like to see Russ in the booth. I think he'll do a good job up there. Kevin says, man, you've grown so much as a creator, Brando. I remember watching you before the Russ trade and wondering, what is this dude doing? What is this dude doing petting a cat on YouTube live? Trust the process. Hey man, that's what it's about. You just got to hang out in this business as much as anything else. You know, you hang around long enough and the fan base eventually is like, all right, we'll watch you. God, you're just not going to, okay. And Pumpkin still loves to make her appearances here, brother. It's been a fun ride, man. I did this as just kind of for fun and starting this up, didn't know what it was going to be 6 years ago, had a full-time kind of gig job I did. And then this thing just took it over. You guys were just amazing, man. You know, come over watching right from the jump and showing the support. And it's been a great ride, man. And as I say, I get to do the dream every day. You know, I get to cover my football for a living. I get to cover my favorite team for a living. I get to cover football and my favorite team for a living that just won the Super Bowl. Like it's a pinch you situation when you wake up in the morning, right? Like it's one of those things where you just go, just so blessed to be able to be in this spot to do this and do what I do. And you guys with me on it. And it's never lost on me, man. Every day that I get to go live on this, it's always just like, man, I cannot believe I get the chance to do this and be in this position right now to do this with this team and with you guys as a community. It's awesome. Just so much fun. Gunner's Mike McDonald doing his LeBron James impression in the media interviews. Not 1, not 2, not 3, 4, 5. Just kidding. He's not getting ahead of himself. He's locked in. Mike is locked in, man. You know he is. I got love for Russell too, man. No hard feelings to Russ. Michael Bennett doing color. Naturally funny and knowledgeable. Russ is too nice. Yeah, you never know with Russ. Russ might turn around a little bit when he get in the booth, you know. He kind of turns it up. Mike does a good job too, right, on the preseason cast. As May says, though, anybody would beat Chris Collinsworth. So, you know what I mean? It's being the one-legged man in a race is what that thing is. Yeah. Baker, which fan base has it the worst? Vikings, Jets, Browns, Bills, Lions. Man, That's a good question. You're talking about, who's the worst of all? We're Hitler, Pol Pot, Stalin. Which of these was the, you know what I mean, Banker? You go, well, all right, Vikings are off. They're fine. I mean, like they're in a struggle. They haven't been in the Super Bowl, but still they've got like ownership that'll spend money, and they do some things smart, and they've had some things where you can see them close. They just haven't been able to break through. Jets are in a major market. They have a championship on their books, on their tolls, be it back in 76. Still, though, that's a team that at any one given time, if they just get half their decisions right, the NFL will be happy to set them up for success. Lions, likewise, hard to do, but they've got a pretty great fan base, and they've got, I think, the means to get it done there. It would come down to probably the Browns or the Bills for me. And I guess I would probably say the Browns, even though it's close for me, Banker, because with the Browns, I would say it's as much the division you play in. With the Bills, you get to play in a division where there's always, for the last 25 to 30 years, two of those teams that are going to suck wind, that are going to be absolutely god-awful. And so if you could just be decent, you can be the second place team in that division and push for a playoff, situation. Whereas the Browns, you look at the division that they've got to play in, where everybody you're taking on that division has been pretty strong over the last 20 years for the most part. Bengals have been on a pretty good run. Ravens have been legitimately good for 25 years. And the Steelers have been somewhat similar in that territory. So there is no easy outs. So, beyond you just not being able to get things right and being so wrong in some of your approaches and the Watson trade, and then giving him all that guaranteed money and then still pushing money down the line after the trade rather than just eating it and owning it. You then have all those teams. Once you get through all of that, then you run into those three teams that you still have to get over the top of on top of it. So I'll go Browns, but I'll tell you the Bills might be in a place right now too, Banker, where they haven't been to a Super Bowl here in years. They've got the 4 Super Bowl losses in a row in the early 90s. Never won a Super Bowl. And now you might have just passed your best chance with Josh Allen there to have the best collective team around Josh to potentially then go and get a Super Bowl. I think they're still going to be very competitive this year. I think they'll still be very good this year, but they're not able. You're already seeing them restricted by the Josh Allen contract and other deal money that they've given out, and they're not a cash-rich organization, so they can't just bury money in void years. I kind of wonder if maybe now, once Josh goes, now you're back in that same place they were before Josh got there, and it's pretty dark at that point, no matter what easy teams you have in the division to go through. Got some different answers here, though, Banker, which is kind of interesting. Got Jets, Vikings, Bills. Tired Canadian petting cats is fine as long as he's not bald and going on and on about getting revenge on some dude named Bond. That's right. Respect that. Cardinals got it the worst, though. I think Doom touches on this, Banker. I think the Cardinals I think they got it the darkest. Oh, thank you, New Blacks. Random Hawks, favorite Hawks content creator, hand down. The Hawks content creator community is one of the best out there. I want to echo that. I think I'm not just giving lip service to this. I think that in watching, and I've got to go through into these behind enemy lines and look at other fan bases and look at content creators and other fan bases. I think we do have the best out there by far. The guys are just hard workers, people that want to be entertaining, people that want to deliver great stuff to you guys. I can attest in having worked with a lot of them that they're good guys behind the scenes and in front of the cameras. It's really a cool community, and it's just part of this fan base. Is what's so awesome about this fan base in general is that just a spirit that permeates everything in so many ways. Jeremy says, Brando, when's the next roundtable? I feel the boys are still hating on us. Laughing out loud, Jesse and his cohort coach both predicting the Niners take us down week 5. Shaking my head. How dare they? How dare they? We're going next Tuesday. So this Tuesday, we're supposed to be back at it as a schedule reaction, and I will let him have it if he's going to think that they're going to win that game. Like I say, Jeremy, on this, they just, everybody across the board, it feels like, not fully, not every single person, but there's a high collection of people from a national perspective to arch rival perspectives that I think still kind of don't give us our just due and don't really respect what we built last year and what we've built for the foreseeable future. And that it's partly, they're still kind of caught off guard and almost kind of blindsided by this team, rather than really like almost doing an autopsy of it to really understand why they were as good as they were. And that's going to be a good thing for us. Let them do it that way. May says, Brando, what team would you least like to be drafted to, assuming you were a quarterback this past draft? Assuming I was a quarterback this past draft, which team would I least like to be? Well, I think, it's hard to beat the Jets situation, because not only do you go to a team that's got a rich history of failing their quarterbacks, but then you have a media that is as fierce, ferocious, and mean as you get in the entire country by far. So you got a media that's not going to give you any time to develop or have any patience with you, set up in a place to maybe not have much success. Like it's one thing just to go to a bad team and have that, but then to have all of that on top of you, where every day you're reading a headline about how much you suck on top of everything else would, in 14 different publications, would probably get pretty lame too. Kokin says, Brando, did you hear the Russ retiring as a Hawk rumor? I did. Makes sense. Love to see it with Russ. So I think it makes a lot of sense for him to come here and do it. I think we always knew he was going to eventually do that. He'll, I'm sure, be on the Ring of Honor someday in addition to it. It's good to see. And it's probably that time. I think Russ has had a couple of different runs at a couple of different organizations to have a chance to reclimate and recapture. And, there's reasons we can unpack why it did define success, but it just hasn't found success. And rather than going and being a backup in New York for Geno, where even if you go out there and start with Geno, it's what are you going to hope to accomplish at that point? So I understand him kind of wanting to, still keep it running, but same point in time, it's not the worst of times to call it. I do think he'll be a Hall of Famer when it's all said and done. But yeah, that'd be cool to hear when it does happen. Thank you, Mays. Very kind of you, man. Appreciate you. Salute you, sir. Brian does great work out there as well. It's right on the line on the Hall of Fame stuff with Russ. I mean, it's going to be an interesting case study on that one for me. Manker says, we need that Brando behind enemy lines at Santa Clara. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I got you. Tyler Kennedy says the one thing all those bad teams have in common is bad ownership. And that's what makes me kind of worried about the Seahawks sale. It should. And you're right. I mean, it is the thing that I point to often, is that it starts with ownership, and it is no small thing. And that, like you say, these teams that are bad and bad for years and bad for decades, and the Raiders haven't been sold to 3 different owners through this era and this dark era that they've gone through, have they? Bills haven't exactly gone through a ton of different owners through this era. Vikings, same thing. You can kind of go blow by blow through these teams. The Bengals have been owned by the Browns forever. And that's it is the part that you really do, I think, got to be first worried about before you get to any general manager, before you get to any coach, before you get to any of your draft. Because if you can get all hyper concentrated on that, but if you got bad ownership, you're really not getting anywhere. You're just not. There's so many examples of this. Cleveland's ownership's been bad. Carolina with David Tepper's ownership's been bad. It just does really stand out. And that those owners that you see that have the purse strings, stay out of the way, committed to building winners, committed to trying to make championships happen, that they year in and year out tend to stay up there around that top point, of things. So it's one thing I'm worried about as well with this tired. I'm hoping that maybe just as much because the price has gotten so high to pay for teams, that these Mike Brown types or the Davis family types or some of these, old era owners that could afford to own teams despite the fact they didn't really have any money are kind of going to be thrown by the wayside. And now that it's going to become a more standard issue that everybody's got the owner in play that's able to put down the money and get it done. But we'll see. You never know with this type of situation. New Blacks, I like that our game in San Francisco is coming off them playing a home game in Mexico City versus the Vikings. We are on a bye. Yeah, that's going to be nice. That's going to be very nice. What's up, Ben? How you doing? It's good to see you in the house, brother. Ski Nation Hawks Nest. I could never do the round table. I do not have your composure. I feel my veins popping in my forehead every time Jake starts talking and every time Mike says the Cardinals do anything good. Well, you see me go at them a lot too. So I don't have exactly a startlingly amount of control either myself, because I tend to go at those guys pretty hard as well about this stuff. It's probably part of what makes it a good show, I'd imagine, is the back and forth that can be undertaken with that. But it's a lot of fun working with those guys. We all have our biases and we love our teams and that's going to exist. I think what I like about it is those guys are committed to, even when we have fierce discussion that goes back and forth. I've seen other roundtable channels where stuff gets personal and it's insult driven and never derives into that in the roundtable, which I really dig, no matter how intense things might start, gearing up to being. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun, but, yeah, it can be a challenge sometimes. I'm not gonna lie, Ski. There are some times I'm biting my tongue in there. Chris says, oh boy, I can't wait to hear how overly confident Jake will be by JB and taking us 2-0. Or over under on the chances of him predicting Simpsons starting by the final year of the game, because they've got it won, the division won so easily by that point. Kendrick's Brando, can you find an even more ridiculous hat for Jesse to wear? Because we all know Jake and Mike are too pussy. I don't know. I might have traumatized Jesse last year, bro. We had him wearing the hat, and then we had him do a Sam Darnold poem at the same time. So I don't know. I think he's still getting shakes in the middle of the night, little twitches when he thinks about it. I'll try. It took me a while to track down that hat, but there's got to be a good one out there that we can find. Ski, on a serious note, Jake really does talk super slow and takes up most of the roundtable talk time. Does that bother anyone? I mean, it's you want discussion to go free and flow, and there's going to be expansive thoughts from some times. I'm sure I can get long-winded here and there too. No, there's no time limit on that with us doing that deal. It's supposed to ideally be like an hour that we're in and out doing that show. It tends to go 2 hours, because we just tend to all be a little bit. But I mean, certainly I'm not one to talk when it comes to, not being long-winded, as we just crossed the 3-hour timeline on this show today. So I certainly would have to probably sit that one out as far as the criticism on that one. But I like it. It's just open and free, man. I want to, we can really dive into the depths, I feel like. And sometimes that's going to have people getting a little maybe extra expansive, but maybe for the betterment. Yeah, Richard, I think Russell's a Hall of Fame quarterback too. 2 Super Bowl appearances. You got to factor in not only what he's done passing yards wise, but a couple of the stats that really do allow him to be elevated are going to be his passing touchdowns and then the rushing yards he had for the position. I think those are 2 things that are going to push him up just past the line. Have a good one, Nicholas. Appreciate you for riding with me here throughout the show today. T-Town Brandon does need to shut down the nonsense that sometimes happens in the roundtables. I call him out. I let him have it. You know what I mean? I ain't going to let him just go off the hook with it. And I definitely try to press down with Mike as much at times with just going, what do you really feel like is the great way for you to get through this rebuild to getting yourself to a championship? Do you think it's chasing quarterbacks and running backs, or building this thing properly from the ground up? But it's fun. I have a great time in there, man. And sometimes I got to lay down the law in there, Coke and Brandon, do you think they'll retire number 3? I think they should. But do they have to wait for Nicky Manwari to retire or something? You'd let him Manwari play through, and then, it's like you did with Randy Johnson and Ichiro, where Randy got his number retired, but Ichiro asked permission to use it, knowing he was going to get retired eventually. And now you have 2 51s retired out there on the baseball park. No, I do not think the number 3 is going to get retired. I think that we'll put him in the Ring of Honor, but not retire the number. I think that the way that he left and the exit here is probably going to prevent the retiring number thing. But certainly Ring of Honor member, name up in there. Yes. Who goes and knocks on Russ's door to tell him he's in the Hall of Fame? Sherman? That'd be pretty funny. That'd be very funny. Yep. For Paul Allen, we had bad ownership here. I mean, the Nordstroms were pretty good in the early 80s. They were just taking on an expansive franchise, and I don't think they had as much money necessarily as things started to get kind of real for them into the mid 80s. But Bering was a nightmare. Industry Word, thank you for the $10 donation. It's lucky day. Well, I'm glad to hear you got your tree taken care of. Thank God. Thank God. You bring the knowledge, they bring the comedy. Hell yeah, man. It takes all parts, as we're trying to put it together. I love those guys. They're great to work with, man. And like I was saying about the content creators, you guys wouldn't think this, but it's like these guys behind the scenes. I got to hang out with the boys of the round table doing the remote session we did in LA for the Rams 49ers game last year. And just great guys. It was just so cool to be able to chop it up with them behind the scenes and just hang. And really great guys. They're the real meal deal. What you see is what you get from them on camera. There's no errors or false this or that. They are what they are, and it's very cool. You're very cool too as well, Cal. Thank you for the $10 donation. Appreciate you. Glad to hear you're not getting your window smashed in by the tree. Appreciate you. Richard, Bearing General Manager, Minority Order Belk, tried in a murder for hire scheme. The two kids killed his ex-partner, said the Seahawks hired them. A whitewash story. Wow. Jeez. I hadn't heard of that. I got to look that up. God, Bearing was dark. Oh, New Blacks. I don't pile on Mike. Cardinals already do enough of that. Jay Melfair, the NFC East roundtable is awful. The Patriots guys went the least informed, worst homers I've seen on the internet. AFC East, that is. Yeah, there's some of the roundtables. There's some good ones and there's some tougher ones. And there's some ones where guys don't, put in the work or seem to, they're just kind of having a general take. And, I do feel like when you do this, that you got to owe it to your audience and owe it to the audience to help do a little bit of the homework involved in it rather than just being kind of like my left nut thinks we're winning today, And so, there's various levels, but look, this is the reason too, why I think that we're right now growing the fastest of any round table and have been for the last 2 years of anybody else. And we've been only really going for 2 years. But we're just about to cross 10,000 subscribers. By next year, we're going to be the biggest roundtable show, I think. And that's saying something. The AFC East one had like a 5-6 year head start on us. So, it's that when you get four guys together that have the great chemistry like we do and put the work in like we do, and the returns will be there for you if you got it. That's why I love doing that show so much every week. And I'm so glad that they've agreed to really roll this every week and through most of the season every week for us, because it really does give us the chance to really continue to just grow this show in full. They got the Clips channel running off of it now. But yeah, there's some of the other roundtables can get a little bit touchy and fierce. And boy, the NFC East one can get a little bit, man, they go at it sometimes in a way where you're like, ooh, this is uncomfortable. Jesse, I think he's traumatized. Jesse is traumatized. He just wants to see a couple of smart decisions in a row. They get one good one and then two bad. Ben says, I'm moving back to California in the next 2 weeks. It sucked to say goodbye to Alaska. Hawks fan here. Oh, well, at least you're warming up a bit though, huh? Weather will improve for you. But I hear Alaska's nice. Alaska would be kind of fun to go live for a couple years. Probably about all I could take of it though at that point. It's time to convert Jesse to the Seahawks. I'm bringing him over slowly but surely, man. I am wearing the hat a couple times last year. We'll have him just finding himself now in the middle of the night, putting it on as he looks in the mirror. It doesn't look bad. I mean, it actually looks, no, I can't do it. I can't do it. But the blue does kind of fit. I mean, it does kind of feel nice. I feel like a winner wearing this hat. We're going to get him there eventually, Chris. Slow but sure. Banker still liked Brando's reaction to that B grade from Jake. We knew he was going to do it. I didn't say I was shocked, but I was waiting to watch the acrobatics. We were talking about it in the roundtable before we started the show with like Jake, before he joined in, we're like, all right, this is coming with Jake. Cause we all had seen his reaction to the picks during the day, Banker, we had seen him and how he'd reacted to what would happen during draft day. We're like, all right, we know it's coming. He's going to jump through the hoop, do a little twirl, spin in the air, end over end, little twist as he finishes up. Sure enough. B. Tired, I agree. Cardinal fans are truly in it for the love of the game and not the championships like all of us Seahawks fans are. You know what I mean? It's just sometimes you're just wired different. We're wired differently here. Just how we're motivated. May says, Brando, you're the only Seahawk creator that reads our comments that are from non-donation peeps. Oh, I love you guys, man. You're my people out here, and it's my community that makes this place go. And you guys got me laughing. Every other comment I'm reading has got me laughing and thinking and considering. Gives us a point of discussion to talk about, to keep the shows moving and rolling. And they still do, even going through 6 years of doing this and reading through comments like I do. Shows just go so very fast. It's like a blink of the eyes, and it's like, oh, we got in 3 hours through. It's like, wow. But you guys are awesome, man. It's fun being able to interact with you guys in this way. I love it about this. Coolest thing about YouTube is having that kind of instant back and forth that you can have in this way. Relax. Lunge is the only recent Seahawk I'd want to have their number retired. Yeah. It's a good chance with him potentially that he is. We got one right now on the board that's necessarily going to, be in alignment to have the number retired. A lot of guys going in the ring. Tyler Lockett is going to go in the ring, and Russell will go in the ring, and Bobby will have his number retired, and he'll go in the ring. Chris is on it with that one. Gogan, Brandon, looking back on it, what are some of the worst Seahawks takes from the guys in the roundtable before the past season? Well, there were people in that roundtable that had us, I believe, in 4th place last year, that had the Cardinals ahead of us in their outlook of what was going to happen with us last season. So that's a pretty bad take. Everybody's collective beginning of the preseason outlook on Sam Darnold, like everyone's, was completely wrong. Jake came along, and that's the nice thing about Jake, is that as homerish as I know you guys nail Jake at being at times, he does show a willingness to move with new information. And he did come through with Darnold through halfway in the year and be like, okay, Brandon, I'm seeing what you're seeing. I'm starting to understand what you're talking about here. But those would be the two big ones to me that stood out, is that, for a team that won the Super Bowl, there were people in that roundtable that thought they'd be in last place. And then that just the complete and utter lack of faith at all in any way in Sam Darnold, that he was going to completely see ghosts and that he was going to fall apart. I mean, not just simply that he was like, oh, he's an okay quarterback, but he's not no, that he's bad, that he's a back third quarterback in this league at best kind of thing. Kendrick, I've seen this custom Seahawks sombrero. It's super loud, and maybe you could add a Seahawk poncho and make him dye his beard lime green. We might have to get to hair dyeing this year, Kendricks. I mean, you just end up upping the ante on this, right? And eventually we're going to be doing like fireman calendars. Yeah, this is how it starts to just escalate. John, thank you for the $2 donation. He says, Mike and Jesse pushing Walter Nolan. No engine. Yeah, if you notice too, John, like they both, because they know where I was at with Walter. So when he gets mentioned or anything, they're both really touchy. If you just watch for Walter Nolan's mention in the roundtable, and you'll see both Mike and Jesse jumping as fast as they can to be like, we don't know the story of Walter yet, okay? Just because he got injured last year does not mean that we know whether he's going to be good or bad. Nothing's been determined at this point. And they are there with that thing. They're rubbing that trigger with their finger and they're ready to pull it. And I'm like, yeah, you guys have a bit of a sense here that I might have been onto something there with the outlook of Nolan coming out of college. And as I maintained, and I was thinking about this a little bit last night, and that, these guys that get injured a lot in the National Football League and they can't stay healthy, there's a lot of reasons for it. Some guys just aren't built for it. Some guys have a body that just happens to break down at the wrong time, a la kind of like a Jamal Adams had happen. But I think that there are also some of those guys out there that, in college can get through and get it done as not being hard workers, but then that they need to be taking care of the body when they get to the pros. And they're still kind of leaning back on the old ways of things a little bit. And then they tend to be injury prone a little bit because of that lack of ability to really drive themselves, in the practice realm of things. And I don't know this for sure with Walter Nolan, John, but it was something that I wondered about last year, and that you then see him get injured multiple times over the course of the season in his rookie year on top of that. I'm not saying it confirms suspicions, but it certainly doesn't dissuade suspicions when it comes to this with Walter Nolan. And when you have a defensive player on college that's turning it on and off, playing a play off, where he wants to decide he's going to go hard, not go hard, I think that's a little bit of a distressing sign for a guy that you're looking to take middle of the first round. I can take that guy in the second round and say, okay, I'm taking a risk, but there's some upside here legitimately. But first round, I need to have the engine motor box checked on the guy. That can't be the one that's kind of sitting out there going, well, if he can just get motivated. I'd also file Kayvon Thibodeau under this exact same thing. The guys can be talented as hell, but if you got to question their fire in their gut, if you got to question their motivation, how much they love the game and how motivated plan and play out there to go 100 miles an hour, well, who cares how talented they are? They're not giving you their best snap in and snap out. And so there's a limitation to whatever top end that you can hope to achieve with them because of it. Richard says, I can see number 11 getting his jersey retired one day. We may run out of numbers. I've always kind of wondered this in the NFL. Eventually you could running out of numbers here if you get too many retired. But I will say now that they've kind of, Richard, opened up the single digits, that's probably prolonged some of that. Baker says, on that collab you did for the 49ers versus Rams game where Jake and Jesse had the stare off, I thought Brando was 6'4" in that video. I know. It's all about staying on the stairs, man. I just, I come from the Tom Cruise, school of how to make yourself appear taller. You know what I mean? It's about subtle setup, subtle standing, just get yourself off camera here. Don't let them see your legs. Get up on the top step. Bring Bobby home. It'd be kind of cool to have Bobby here as kind of a backup role, comes in and kind of backs up and, he's kind of there to help out. I wouldn't mind it necessarily. Z-Bot does a great job. New Blacks. Koken, thank you for 7 months as a Hawks Nest member. Brandon, looking back, what are some of the worst Seahawks takes from the guys in the roundtable before the past season? I could use a good laugh. Yeah, so I definitely would say it's Seahawks in 4th place. It's Sam Darnold will never win you a playoff game. I think that was like one of the things that would have been said out there. Cooper Kupp wasn't going to be able to give you anything good. It's really those first two that stand out to me, Koken, because those were just so far off the mark. Like, not only were you wrong, but you were off by miles. Miles. 4th place team that becomes a Super Bowl winning team and a quarterback that you say is bottom 3rd in the league and can't win you a playoff game, that not only goes out there and wins the Super Bowl, but plays, clean football throughout all of those playoff games. Doesn't have one turnover, Those two to me stand out pretty strongly as like, Doom says retiring numbers are silly. That brought 80 out of retirement for Rice. Yeah, that was not one of the better moments in our history. And Rice kind of pushed for it, which was kind of crappy on his part. Thank you, Max. Appreciate you, brother. That's kind of you to say, man. Yeah, Alaska here is very chill. A lot of random fans out here. Yeah, we got a heavy Seahawks contingent out there, man. And it does seem like some really cool people in Alaska. I've yet to meet anybody out of Alaska that wasn't just a cool, chill person. Be kind of an interesting place to live. Chris's hair dyeing, her logo shaved in the side of the head. It's going to have to be one or the other, I think, at this point. We're going to have to figure out something a little bit extra. We got to keep up in the ante. Well, 3 years from now, Chris, it'll turn into a full-on duel with musket. C-Town, what is the best competition in camp? Right guard, defensive back? I think the right guard one is very interesting because if Bo Stevens solidifies himself, what does that do for Bradford? And I don't think you're going to have Bradford on the bench. And if Stevens solidifies himself, he not only now gives you a starter that gives you an upgrade, but then also might be worth getting an extra draft pick back in return, because then you probably are able to flip Bradford then for not a big pick. Maybe it's a 5th or 6th round pick in training camp, but then you're also able to lose the $4 million of salary that would cost you on the books for him this year, which then frees you up with that much more money to be able to go out there and make another commiserate move to add on top of the team then in another way. So that's the one to me, whereas defensive back's more about the Fuller, Neal combo pushing up against the Pritchett Igbenogany combo and sort of what's going to win out between those factors. And like, it's kind of like, well, just who's the best 4 that end up shaking out of that, or who's the best, 4 or 5 that shake out of that. So that one's interesting, but the right guard one's interesting because of the domino effects it could have if Stevens is able to go and really retain that starting job and push Bradford down the line. Ben says, can you imagine back in the 70s, the Bills almost moved to Seattle and we will root for Seattle Bills for paying the stadium bill? Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm glad we got our own team and we didn't have to take the Bills from Buffalo. Though it is kind of random. Buffalo got an NFL team, isn't it? Richard John quickly pivoted and jumps on Sam. He's not listening to the haters. 14 wins with the Vikings in the O-line. He wanted him. Yeah, John was purposeful in this approach. He didn't, last offseason was, he made that to order. I was not like, well, I guess I'll do this. Well, I guess I'll do this. He had to make hard decisions. And we're eventually going to do a show on John Schneider this offseason talking about this a little bit. But, John's had to, over the last 3 years, you can look at the big decisions he's made and being so smart on this trade or that trade and the Russell Wilson move and finding Sam. But it's like, there's so many things that he's done right. It's not only been the things that John's done so right and just hit on so many different decisions. It's also been about the things that he's avoided. I call it the landmines that he didn't step on. And he's been phenomenal over the past 3 years in both of these two departments. And as a general manager, it's both things. It's both what you do and it's what you avoid. Because there's so many pitfalls to step into. It's so easy to fall into them too. Hayes, I'd love to see the rookie right guard win the starting job by a mile. Best line in the league. It'd be good, man. It'd be a very nice development on a variety of different ways for it. Sorry, Canadian Seattle Bills. That's better than the Seattle Karens. Hold on. I'm super late with my rim shot today. I got to get the rim shot. Who had Seattle in fourth place? Mike probably, but anyone else? How did that even make that argument? Well, there was the thinking, remember this, with Gannon coming into last year, he'd improved the team through the first 2 years. So it was kind of like, he's just going to naturally keep improving the team. There was a thought process, they'll continue to take that next step forward a little bit. Hard to remember exactly. I don't know if I think that Mike definitely had us in fourth place, but I thought that there was somebody else that had us in fourth place too. It might've been Jesse, but I know everybody had Niners and Rams in first and second place, and we were minimum third place to fourth place. Chris Bobby in rotation for the run, especially in red zone run coverage. Yeah, you can just get him in sub packages like that. I love it. I love it, Chris. Let's do it. Koken says, it's interesting to see how everyone was talking about Dunker, but I didn't see anyone talk about Stevens. Yeah, I think it was as much to do with the fact that Stevens was at left guard, and people, I think, thought as much that he was going to go and still remain at left guard when he got to the pros, first getting moved back over to the right side. But Dunker was, a little bit of the funner option, and he gave you a little bit of the versatility too, where it's not just the right guard, but maybe the guy that long-term center, fill in at left guard, maybe fill in at right tackle if something happened with Lucas. There was a lot of versatility he brought. I think the red mullet moved Dunker up the board. It didn't hurt, right? Certainly didn't do any damage to him. Ben says, yeah, especially since the Bills, everyone knows, aren't the first Bills. There was the AAFC Bills, the same league with the Niners, almost joined NFL, but many teams stopped them, including the Bears. Oh, wow. Huge football market up there, I guess, Ben. Feed me over under 8.5 wins for the Ravens this season. Hawks Nest. Oof. Jeez. It's right on the line, man. That's a really good spot to put that in at, because it's like I'm right at between 8 and 9. I mean, I'm right at that spot for me. They've got a pretty tough schedule. I mean, Colts, Cowboys, Bills, Jaguars, Chargers, Panthers, Texans, Buccaneers. I mean, there's some tough ones there, but then they got the 2 freebies against Cleveland. Probably 2 freebies against the Steelers, especially being that that's at the end of the year. I'll take the over on it, but I'm not super confident on that one. Not super confident on that one. Maze, I've been rewatching the games, and I have to say that Bradford is so slow and always out of position. Rook is going to get the job easy. Mark my words again. I could see it, man. I'm going to be doing a show on Bradford, and the name of the show I think was going to be that Anthony Bradford is a carnival ride safety harness, because it's pretty much what a safety harness should be. You're held in by a very thin piece of metal is keeping you held in, but then at the same point, it's keeping you held in this ride that's sending you around at Mach 3. So, it is a little bit that way, but you never know when that piece is going to go bing. We've all seen the YouTube videos, right, of the carnival rides down in like Brazil, where they're going, zing, and then the thing goes bing, and they go bing, and they get thrown off into the, out of frame. But yeah, there's some definite rough reps in there from Bradford. There's some good ones in there too, but there's some rough reps in there. There just is. And he's not exactly set a baseline that's impossible for Stevens to clear, or for that matter, God forbid, Christian Haynes finally comes forward and does something, right? Yeah, the Lamar aspect of this is the part that makes it the hard to predict the Ravens. They got still a very solid roster, but where is Lamar at as a player? Has he kind of reached the spot where he's losing a little bit of his legs? Has he grown his game from the neck up now around that to accommodate that and be able to overcome that? I don't know. And he sure felt like he was a step slower last year in how he's moving around back there and not quite as escapable as he once was. Maybe the only thing I see Bradford doing well is being so big, he's hard to get around. Sometimes that can be enough for him. I mean, he is. He's big. He's got really long arms. He's a lot. And sometimes being a guard is sometimes just being and getting in front of guys and being just big. So he definitely has that. And that's a place where that's a bit of ahead of a guy like Stevens, who's going to be a little bit more not quite built with that same kind of size to him, just big, like bear-like size. But that is kind of the main thing working in his favor. Bradford's definitely a carnivore. He doesn't skip a meal. I'll say that. Phoebe, Hawks Nest. Did Barkley going up to 2,000 yards encourage teams, if we decent, we can pay a running back, because the rise of teams drafting and paying running backs is odd all of a sudden? Don't forget JT got paid. I don't know if it's Barkley. I mean, certainly there's a factor of having the success that the Eagles had, signing a free agent running back and then going and winning the Super Bowl, and him being a key point, maybe the most key point to your team in winning that Super Bowl, is certainly going to push some teams to be moved in that direction. I would argue that really what it is no, we're not going there. We're not going there. I'd argue that what it probably really is that's driving this force as much as anything else is that the passing attack has gone backwards the past couple of years. The passing attack has gone backwards the past couple of years because of the proliferation of the cover 2 shell. And as all of these defenses are essentially saying, we're taking away the pass, we're taking away the deep passing attack, they're opening up more of an opening now to running the ball. And then with that, now you've seen more 12 personnel, more 2 tight ends and 3 tight end sets. And this is these two combinations of factors. You're going to stay in 12 personnel. You're going to stay in 12 personnel, even when we run 2 tight end looks. This tells us, offensively speaking, that we probably should try to run the ball a bit to take advantage of that. And so what that's then going to lead to is then running backs becoming then naturally more important because you're running the ball more, right? So it's a little bit of that, to where the game right now is just kind of in its ebbs and flows. It's ebbing in the direction of running the ball. And so they're going to matter a little bit more than they mattered in 2019 or 2021. And that's just, it's as much of, this is just kind of where the game is kind of angled lately. As far as its current trend goes. Once you get the teams now to start to take the safeties and bring them down to the box, we'll get back to pass happy city again on the often. Banker Brandon, you make a montage of the bad claims in the roundtable, TV, social media about how your Hawks this past year, the Carnival songs plays throughout the video. That's a good idea, actually. I wouldn't be bad off-season content, Banker. I will say that. That's some good off-season content. Lord knows I did a couple of videos on the Patriot local fans and pundits and talking about the Hawks. That thing's doing great every day. I've got get a couple thousand views a day on that video. Both of those 2 videos. You guys are just watching those. Oh, that's a great idea. Maybe I'll see if I can kind of dig through and find some takes from the boys the past year to kind of hit them with, especially as I can intercut banker Jesse in the Seahawk hat and Jake in the Seahawk hat. Mike wouldn't take the bet, of course, but well, if there's one offseason to get in shape, this is the offseason, C-Town. He's going to be a free agent this year, so he could go make himself a lot of money by getting in shape right now. Will he? We'll see. We'll see. It's just in Trump's voice. We need to build a wall and have the Rams and Niners pay for it. A big, beautiful wall. We're still going, but we're just about to wrap it up here as we're kind of putting a button on this. Kupp is going to be a boss this year. That is absolutely right. That is absolutely right. And made the case, if you guys get a chance, check at the top of the show today. Really went in deep to Kupp's last season and tried to kind of unpack in really full form why the narrative out there around Kupp and him being out, the outlook of his demise and him being washed and him being over the hill has really been overstated and was overstated last year. And people had to understand a little bit about the nature of our offense, how infrequently we were throwing the ball, for why there wasn't more production. But it wasn't meaning that he wasn't being efficient, wasn't meaning that he wasn't being a factor in a variety of different ways, including as a run blocker, including in what he brings behind the scenes as far as a leader in the locker room and a guider of young men in the wide receiver room too. He brings a lot to the table, this Cooper Kupp. And part of the reason that this team is so unique is it has so many parts and pieces to it that make it great rather than being driven by wholly stars and superstars. And that those parts and pieces that are brought to the table all have extra aspects into what they bring that help you out. It's a Rashid Shaheed that comes in, and it's not just as a punt returner, kick returner. It's also, I can be your ex-speedster over the top. I can be a guy you can give carries to as a running back, and I can be your fly sweep guy. So these guys bring so much in what they bring beyond just one limited point of a skill set, but they bring all of this extra stuff in addition to it. And if you stack a team with guys like that all bring these extra things to their game, it's a hell of a team that you've built from it. And that's just what we saw last year and why, one of the reasons why this team was a championship roster last year. Because you got so many guys that are like this that can do so many things. Byron Murphy that can be a nose tackle and one of the best in the sport playing that position. But if you need me to flex out to 3-tech, I can be a dominant 3-tech on top of that too. It's that type of stuff that you get from these guys. And it's uniformly all the way around in this roster. Start to finish, guy in and guy out, you see it everywhere. You really do. Y2K, thank you for the $2 donation. Appreciate you for finishing us off nice and right. He says Price is going to be a boss. My man's coming to a place where he has really got a great chance for success here. And the big part that I've been thinking about with Jadarian Price and coming over here is a little bit of that Achilles tear that he had in his college career. And that being one that can sometimes take a couple of years to guys to get back around on when they've suffered it young and early in their career. And that maybe we get even a version of him this year that's even a little bit more healthier than the one they got last year. That maybe part of the reason that you had him sharing so much of the load at times was, trying to manage him coming back from that injury just a little bit. But he looked really good in minicamp. He was moving well. You can see for a guy with long legs, he runs really well behind his pads. And he's going to be a pure fit to this offense, and he is set up for success. And so much of the running back position, as we've learned about over the past couple of years here with our own little test case study with Charbonnet and Walker, that running back success is going to be heavily driven by the factors that he has in play working in his favor this year. Offensive line, all returning the starters, also very talented. All of your receiving core, all of your tight ends, capable quarterback play, great offensive system, defense that gets off the football field time and time to give the opportunity so you don't have to score on the constant, so you can run the ball. He's got it all set up in his favor. So, if there's no part of that to where if he fails, that's going to be looking in part where it's like, well, you did Price dirty with this. You did Price dirty with that. He's getting that chance to maximize this opportunity, including giving the opportunity to be the bell cow back from day one with Charbonnet coming back from that ACL. So we're going to see, man. And I think he's got a great chance to have that success. One of the reasons I said, take the over on his 725, because he's hitting that. You better believe he's hitting that. Kupp looking good in camp, man. He's looking good. He's looking ready. Appreciate you coming back in the fold here, Catalyst. Still dreaming. I think this is going to be a huge year for the Hawks. It's going to come together. Even Bradford's going to stand out. I could see that too, man. As much as Bo Stevens might push him, you might also get Bradford having the offseason of his life, understanding that if I come in and get in the best shape of my life and have the best year of my career, I can go out there and earn a lot of money. I can make a big payday. People are looking for offensive linemen right and left. So if he can get that done, that'd be cool to see. That's right. Coops the vet drives these receivers is right. He's down. Price versus Kupp in arm wrestling. That'd be a good battle. Kupp's got that old man strength. Catalyst, we're just getting started. The league runs through the Pacific Northwest now. I love it. Let's go. Max, thank you for the 5 months. The Hawks Nest member. He says, I think Cooper Kupp should get a lot of credit for holding Puka Nakua's mental together. When Kupp left, Puka went fake streamer Hollywood diva suddenly. Indeed, you wonder a bit about the development that Kupp's been able to provide there. To a guy like Puka and what he was able to provide with a guy like GSN coming here in the support structure, that he does. He's a guy that, is like a coach on the football field. He really is. And you never know unless you're behind the scenes exactly how this stuff applies and how much effect it has. But it does really feel like Kupp's got a bit of guidance that he can supply. And just a guy like this that just lives and breathes football and understands at the level he does, how can it not, kind of just bleed itself off on the people around you a little bit, just naturally you're going to have it, even if, you're not wired like he's wired in that way. But Puka definitely had an odd off season, man. Very strange year, strange off season, a little bit there. Just don't have a lot of explanation for it, but he seems to have gotten things figured out. Went to rehab and maybe got things kind of situated. This live is outlasting my iPad. That's how we roll here, man. That's how we roll. Now, I'm not saying Bradford plays like a dude who jumped out of an airplane without an air parachute and breaks his fall by smashing into the trees, but he does. Kendrick say, Brandon, did you see Marvin Harrison Sr. disavowed Marvin Harrison Jr. and claims JSN as his true prodigal son? That's cold. That's cold. Don't forget about the barnyard. You mean this? Never forget the barnyard. I did get to see the Hawks season thingy. It was very funny. Very well done. Very chaotic and random, but cool. Love them getting a lot of the Seahawks celebrities in to get the stuff done like they did, which was neat. They did a good job. Very good job. Very good job. How you doing, Robin? It's good to see you in the house. Thanks for jumping on in here. You caught us just as we were getting a wrap up on this one here. So I really want to say thank you again to all the donations, member messages in the chat. We'll be trying to get this week, if we can, a call-in show for members of the channel. So be on the lookout for that. I don't know. Maybe we'll do like a Wednesday or Saturday thing this week on that one. But be on the lookout on your community posts. I'll get that out and posted to you guys shortly with that. Another just mention too, please do get a chance. You guys get a chance. This past week released out the second episode of the Year of Kubiak. Really proud of this. Putting a lot of work into this thing. Would love to get more of your guys' feedback on that video. So if you get a chance, please do check out the Year of Kubiak. When we come back this Wednesday, looking at the AFC West or the NFC West offseason, we're going to go team by team in this division, take a look at the tracker, what they did this offseason, who did what team got themselves a little better, a little worse, what the outlook is for this upcoming season, kind of just a full meal deal of what we're looking at for those rivals in this division, for how much harder or easier it's going to be this year to maybe potentially go out there and take this division and what has been, historically speaking, the best division in football, and certainly was last year, I think, historically speaking. So, for truth, I still can't wait till September 9th. All the rumors and drama will be over, and we'll have our team. Let's go, man. Let's go. Taker610, thank you for the $5 donation, finishing us up right and nice. Could our midseason acquisition this year still be Crosby? I'm hoping to go to the Raiders game and want to see Crosby in our colors when I do. I think Crosby is certainly a potential of being on the table. I do maintain that the Raiders had a pretty freewheeling spending off season, and they did so with the thought process that Crosby and his price and cost was not going to be on the roster. So that's not something that they've necessarily budgeted for. I think Crosby does seem to have a little bit of a weird thing of wanting to stay with the Raiders kind of no matter what, which could be a prevailing factor on this, which makes it hard to kind of predict. But I think in general terms, the Raiders understand that it's in their best interest to move him. I think we would be in play to do that, but I don't think that necessarily we would be the only team in play to do that. If the Rams, for instance, don't get a deal done with Byron Young and they're halfway into the season and now they can't get a deal done, but the Raiders like Byron Young and now they can go to the Raiders and they say, hey, Byron Young and a second round pick, give us Crosby. And they've got us superseded in what we could offer them, equivalent wise. So like that's where you could even still want him, but you end up getting overruled there by a team that wants him a little bit more than you. And that's where it's going to be interesting to see from a Seattle perspective if they'd be willing to do that. I think another part of this that factors in, Taker, is the fact that if you go get a Jadeveon Clowney, which the rumors are the latest ones from the insider info that we've got is that the team's going to look to try to target Jadeveon Clowney right there before before the training camp starts there to bring him on in. Well, now that gives you 5 edges. And if you have 5 edges going through all of trade deadline, there really isn't a need to then go and add a Crosby at that point, especially if they're being effective in that 5-man rotational. So you could even be at a place where you're willing to make a trade deadline move, but you just feel good about that position that you look to target another position elsewhere. Bottom line on this one is that certainly he's in play, but I think it's one that makes it very hard to predict that you're going to be just absolutely hyper targeting in on him, him or hell high water kind of feeling like, rather than it being that, which it probably was more of that last year, it's probably more of a wait and see kind of approach. And that if you go 5 deep on the edge group, you're not going to feel a need, I don't think, to have to go and make that kind of pressure trade, especially if you're doing it with it being a kind of a bidding war, where you're in with 3 other teams that are trying to get it. And now it pushes up way more than you want to be actually offering. I don't know. I see a harder track to getting this deal done at this point necessarily, but it's not completely off the table. And we know John would be in on it. 100% for sure. He'd be in on it. Great question, man. If there's an injury or two, there'd be no doubt you'd be in on at that point, but I kind of do wonder with watching the Rams on this one, Taker, be so kind of careful this offseason to not do a lot. If they're just kind of saying it's going to go for without saying that we're going to be willing to throw that first round pick this year at the deadline around. Like, we're going to do that. There's no doubt in our mind. Like, we had our conservative offseason and we're doing it in lieu of understanding we don't need a quarterback for the future of now, so we can offer that first round pick and we will be willing to do that. In fact, we're anticipating that we're going to do that. I've kind of been making the mention that it very well may be in this division that the price to get this division title this year may be for anybody. The Seahawks, the Niners, the Rams, it may be a first round pick. That might be the requirement here. Yeah, Robin, I agree. I do get the impression here with Crosby that a bit of the factor that really winds in here is one thing if you have a player on a bad team and he's tired of losing and he wants to leave. It's another thing when you have a really great player on a bad team who still wants to stay there and loves the organization. And that may be enough on this one to sort of keep him there when it's all said and done, especially if the Raiders can't get back the kind of returns that they were able to get with the Ravens on the prior trade, where now it's maybe even less than a first round pick kind of return. It shows you if we get Clowney who's stopping this defense, nobody. You're 5 deep off the edge. You're deep off the interior. Your back end's tight, like best defense in the NFL. You're sending waves at them constantly. And you're sending waves of physicality at them constantly. And nobody would have an answer for it, in my opinion. And the cost between him and Fowler is so cheap to bring those two on as a 5-edge stack. It's like, it makes it a no-brainer move to do, especially if you have Clowney on board like Fowler with trying to chase after a Super Bowl. You get a little bit of that chasing ring factor brought into play. Every time Clowney came here, he wasn't his best. I would offer Robin that he was our best edge rusher the year he was here. While I didn't put up a lot of sack snaps when he was here, a lot of that had to do with how often he was double and triple teamed because of the fact the rest of your defensive line was crap and that the offenses knew that he was the one threat. So that was the guy that was going to get double and triple teamed the most. That's oftentimes been a lot of what Clowney's dealt with throughout a lot of his career, which has reduced down his effectiveness at times. He's been on a lot of times bad teams without other good edge rushers. He's 2 years removed from having the best season of his career, Robin, in this Mike McDonald defense with the Ravens. He's a pure fit to this defense for what you look for from the edge crew. I think he had a good year last year, not playing a hyper amount of snaps, but was very efficient on the back of it. And again, you're bringing him in here not to be your first edge, not to be your second edge, not to be your third edge, not to be your fourth edge, but to be the 5th edge in the rotation, to give you depth, to reinforce you insurance-wise with your edge group. All right, we will call the ball on that note again. If you can for me, please hit that like button, slam that like button. Yes, I know it's something I ask on the often, but it does, yes, help me show up on the algorithm, help me show up for those folks that are looking for great Seahawks content right now in the offseason as people are doing so. We will be back here this Wednesday. I'm also hard at work here on the Year of Kubiak series, hoping to get out those next 3 episodes to you here If not before the end of the month, just after the end of the month, just kind of go one after another. We'll get them all out to you guys here. Love the feedback I'm getting from you guys on that. You seem to be really enjoying that. So more of that to come. More to come this offseason. I got a lot lined up for you guys, a lot planned for you guys. And then we've got a season that's going to be an awesome season at that. The Roundtable is going to be probably doing an in-person event in Seattle. So I'll be out there with you guys on that. We got the Syndicate crew that we're getting together in training camp. A lot planned here for you guys in the upcoming season. Really looking forward to this upcoming year and this channel just being able to continue to grow and grow and grow. And you guys to just keep rocking along with me. I thank you guys for rocking with me today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for the great discussion. Appreciate all of the kind donations of the chat. Please do use my Prize Pick HMA code when you use that sports app, the best sports app running in the game today. Big shout out to them as well for sponsoring yours truly here throughout the course of the NFL season. But a shout out to you guys. You could be anywhere, watching anything this time of year. You're here hanging out with me throughout this stream for almost 3 hours and 45 minutes. And from the bottom of my heart, I thank you for rocking with me in that way. Really do. It's been another great show with you guys. It's been a great off season. Fun being champion, man. It's nice. It's nice sitting on top, looking down at everybody else, just feeling good, puffing on your cigar, having a little bit of the wine, just kind of chilling there. Feels good. I know you guys feel well with it as well on it. We will be back here shortly again on Wednesday, 5:00 show. But until that time, with the championship roster, with a chance to repeat, I shouldn't have to remind you. I shouldn't have to let you know, but I'm going to do so anyway. I got to do it. Don't you dare ever forget. Go Hawks.